Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, like and subscribing would be greatly appreciated. If you have any recommendation for novels, comment below. Spider-Man, Across the Universe. Chapter 1. Just dressed like this? Bede, an author who has been on the street for 2 years. This is the most confusing moment of my life. Half an hour ago, he was still in his dormitory, eating barbecue, eating ice cream, and watching movies. Unexpectedly, his computer suddenly had a strange reaction and sucked him in directly. When he came back to his senses, he found that he was already standing in this alley with a faint smell. He was wearing pajamas on his upper body and big pants on his lower body. At this time, a gust of cold wind blows. His feet was covered in goosebumps from the cold, and quickly leaned his body against the wall next to him. What the hell is going on here? A whole game? Or am I being blown up by the computer and hallucinating? Bede looked around, and soon found something wrong. A newspaper with only a small strip left fell on the ground, and it was all in English. Fortunately, Bede's academic performance was not bad when he was studying, and he also likes to watch some American dramas with raw meat, so he can probably understand the above things. In the past 2 weeks, 2 mysterious earthquakes occurred in Brooklyn, respectively on Monday last week and Friday this week. The specific cause of the earthquake is under investigation. According to experts' speculation, although the epicenter of the earthquake is directly below Brooklyn, it is very deep and will not have a serious impact on everyone's daily life, so please don't panic too much. This is positive. Pedro stretched out his hand, turned it over with his fingers, and saw another line of text on the back. Mr. Wilson Fisk, a great philanthropist in this city, recently donated a sum of experimental equipment worth $10 to Midtown Science and Technology Middle School. This is the 4th large charitable donation made by Mr. Fisk this year. It's really amazing. Brooklyn, Wilson Fisk. Pedro's mind turned quickly. If he remembered correctly, Brooklyn should be the name of a district in New York City, the Eagle Country across the ocean. Wilson Fisk is the supervillain in a series of Marvel superhero works such as Spider-Man, Daredevil and The Punisher. He has a more familiar name. Gold End. Hiss. Pedro took a breath and made a contribution to the warming of the world's climate, so I have time traveled? But I don't want to time travel. Besides, it's too ghostly to time travel in Marvel. Are you kidding me? Supervillains are flying all over the place, superheroes are walking everywhere, maybe one day they will burp their farts. I hope it's just the same name. I hope it's just the same name. B whispered in a low voice, and slowly moved out of the alley. At this moment, a nerve suddenly stood up in his brain. The body that was in motion instantly became stiff. He felt that his 5 senses were magnified in an instant, and then subconsciously looked in a certain direction above his head. Then, he saw a dark figure hanging upside down under the eaves more than 10 meters high. Fuck! Pedro was taken aback. Hey, the man was also startled by Bede's sudden reaction, and even stopped saying hello. At the same time, a bad premonition unconsciously appeared in Bede's mind. Wait, are you Spider-Man? His voice trembled, but he didn't know whether it was excitement or fear. The excitement is naturally because of the possibility of meeting idols. It may be an exaggeration to say idols, but among the many Marvel superheroes, Bede's favorite is Spider-Man. And the fear, of course, is the reason mentioned earlier. He is afraid to come to this superpower world where the gods fight and the mortals suffer. This is no joke. Throughout the plot of Marvel, although superheroes have been protecting ordinary people, countless ordinary people are still affected in the process. The battle in New York City in Avengers 1 destroyed more than half of New York, causing countless casualties and immeasurable economic losses. In American Team 2, the US team designed 3 InSight spaceships controlled by Hydra to shoot each other over Washington, and the last 3 spaceships crashed together, causing dozens of deaths and a direct loss of $28 billion. In Avengers 2, Age of Ultron, the Hulk was controlled by Wanda and went berserk, raging on the streets, and then had a battle with Iron Man driving the Hulkbuster armor. After that, Ultron used the device to let Sokoia Fate Yen attempts to use it to carry out an asteroid impact on the Earth operation, thereby destroying all life on the Earth. This time, although BD never recognized the argument that the Federation, LHG, Anti-Harmony, used them to accuse superheroes of guilt in American Team 3, it is undeniable that ordinary people in the Marvel world are indeed involved in these disasters. Too many lives have been lost. It is not an exaggeration to say that life is worthless. Therefore, ghosts are willing to come to this kind of world. However, what is heaven fails to fulfill people's wishes. This is the case now. The man landed in front of Bede with a slight exertion. Peeta's eyes widened. Jumped more than 10 meters, unscathed. Nima, it's really Spider-Man. It's over, it's barbecue. However, why is the painting style of the Spider-Man in front of him a bit strange, completely different from the ones he knows? For normal Spider-Man, the spider suits should be red and blue. The one in front of him is black and grey, with a black coat over his battle suit, which looks cool, but when he thinks he is Spider-Man, this look becomes weird. The visitor tilted his head, looked at Bede, and said in bewilderment, "Yes. I said, buddy, although I'm also surprised, there's no need to pretend this kind of thing in front of your own people, right?" Bede was puzzled. What do you mean? Although it was a bit of a surprise to be considered one of our own by Spider-Man, he was very inexplicable. Could it be that I am not wearing clothes, but souls? And put it on someone I know from the Spider-Man of this world? The visitor also looked at Bede in confusion. He looked up and down Bede's attire, and asked curiously, "Aren't you Spider-Man? Then why was the spider sensor triggered between me and you just now?" "What spider sense?" Bede said subconsciously. Immediately, he remembered the nerve that was touched in his mind when he discovered this person just now. Could it be a spider sense? But I'm not Spider-Man. Although I was just bitten by a spider yesterday, it was precisely because of this that I found a reason to ask for leave and spent a bad day. But there are many people who have been bitten by spiders. If being bitten by spiders can become Spider-Man, then wouldn't those who are bitten by worker ants be migrant workers, by a woman? Ahem. In short, it shouldn't be that simple to mutate, right? Peeta began to recall the scene of being bitten by that spider in his mind. End of this chapter. Chapter 2 Shadow Spider-Man. Probably last night, I hurried, and finally finished typing before 0 o'clock and arrived at full attendance. Afterwards, in order to celebrate, I planned to go to the nearby night market to buy something to eat. On the road, I saw a disc stone carving like a spider web. With his hands empty, he reached out and picked it up. As a result, a spider suddenly drilled out from under the disc and bit him. After that, he returned home in a daze, had a fever all day, and didn't wake up until night. When I woke up, I realized that even if I started typing now, it would be too late to update, so I decisively chose to give up, ask for leave, rest, hey. Ahem, then, I ordered a barbecue takeout, ate barbecue and watched a movie, and I was transported through it. These days, time travel is getting more and more sloppy. Peeta quickly went through all the things in his mind, cursing in his heart. As an author of street attacks, if he dared to arrange such a sloppy way of attacking the streets, wouldn't he be sprayed to death? Hey, buddy! The man waved his hand in front of Bede came back to his senses in an instant. "Sorry, I was thinking about something." "Hello, my name is Bede, what's your name?" Bede decided to figure out the current situation first. Regardless of whether he crossed over because he was bitten by that spider, it has become an established fact that he came to another world. Accepting the status quo and thinking about the future is the best choice at the moment. The man said, "Hello, Bede, what a coincidence, my name is Peter Benjamin Parker. Are you the Spider-Man of this world?" Here, Bede's English pronunciation is also Peter. Bede knew it was Peter Parker. Spider-Man. But this. I'm not, aren't you? Peter was taken aback. Peter Parker shook his head, stretched out his hands to show his clothes, and then shrugged. My world is still in 1939, and this world. I think it is at least 2039. Bede took a closer look at the other party's clothes this time, and he found that it was actually a pilot's costume that he had seen in World War I movies before. The chest part should be made of Kevlar fiber, that is, most the material used in body armor. However, there are actually 2 pistol holsters around his waist. A Spider-Man who uses a pistol as a weapon? Peter was a little surprised. Although he is a Spider fan, his main fans are the 3 movie versions of Spider-Man, Toby Spider, Garfield Spider and Dutch Spider-Man. He also watched the '94 version of Spider-Man animation when he was a child, and the unfinished Super Spider-Man after that. Spider-Man and more. Oh, and he's also played the Spider-Man games in Marvel's Spider-Man and Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales. However, no matter whether it was in the movies he had watched or the games he had played, the person in front of him obviously did not exist. However, his suit looks quite familiar. After Bede looked carefully for a while, the thoughts in his mind became clear. Correct. It seems to be in the game of Marvel Spider-Man, but there is no such cape. Remember that it should be unlocked after completing the side mission, something old, something new. The effect is that even if the enemy finds it, the enemy will not call for support after wearing it. At some point, this battle suit is still very useful. And its name, if I remember correctly, is called the Black Suit or the Shadow Suit. It is said that every suit in that game has its origin, some from Spider-Man in the parallel universe, and some from certain events of Spider-Man. So, could this person in front of you be the original owner of that shadow suit, Shadow Spider-Man? Bede didn't even realize it, but his memory at the moment was surprisingly good. How can a normal person remember in which event and in which way a certain suit of a certain game was unlocked? There are probably only 2 kinds of people who can do this. One is the one who has studied the plot repeatedly for the purpose of winning the Platinum Cup or satisfying the collection addiction, and the other is the grandma who specializes in recording videos. But Bede was neither. So, are you the Shadow Spider? Bede blurted out as he looked at the Shadow Spider. Shadow Spider-Man. Shadow Spider tilted his head. Wow, that's a good name, I like it very much. From then on, I'll be called Shadow Spider-Man. So sloppy. Peter murmured silently, but unconsciously heaved a sigh of relief. Although he traveled to the Marvel Universe inexplicably, he met Spider-Man anyway, and he seemed to be the same kind of Spider-Man? Could it be that I am also Spider-Man? Peter raised his hand and carefully looked at his palm, especially the fingers. He remembered that in the Toby Spider's version, there were some extremely tiny barbs sticking out of the Toby Spider's fingers. Maybe he has too? However, after looking at it for a long time, he couldn't see why. The Shadow Spider leaned close to Bede, and asked suspiciously, "What are you doing?" Bede replied without looking up, "If I also have the ability of Spider-Man, will I have barbs or something on my hand?" Barbs? Why are there barbs? The Shadow Spider was a little confused. Because there is a Spider-Man with barbs on his hands. Bede put down his hand. He guessed that he was not the type with barbs on his hands. Of course, it's also possible that he doesn't have any Spider-Man abilities at all, and everything just now was just an illusion. The Shadow Spider was a little surprised and said, "Do you know any other Spider-Man? Is it the Spider-Man of this world? What's his name? Can you take me to meet him?" Bede shook his head, "It shouldn't be from this world." "What's should?" the Shadow Spider asked in confusion. "Because I'm not sure which world this is." Bede spread his hands, then bent down to pick up the small half of the newspaper left on the ground, and gestured. "The known clue is that there is also Wilson Fisk in this world, in my mind, he was a big villain, the underground king of New York. Oh! I know him. People usually call him Jin Bin. The shadow spider picked up the newspaper and read it while talking. After reading the above content, he curled his lips. It seems that no matter which world he is in, Jin Bing is so annoying. A hypocritical philanthropist. B agrees. In the movie version, there seems to be no chance for this big villain to appear. The only time he appears is in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, he is the one who releases the Green Goblin in the prison at the end of the film. But he never played it head-on. However, in the Spider-Man movies that Pete saw as a child, this one had a lot of roles. Almost all villains have an affair with him. He also worked briefly with Carnage Spider-Man, who finally tried to destroy the multiverse. Thinking of this, an idea suddenly came to Bede's mind. He looked at the shadow spider and said, "Tell me, is it possible that our sudden appearance in this world has something to do with Jin Bin?" End of this chapter. Chapter 3 Ability Emergence. The shadow spider shrugged, and said helplessly, "You've stumped me. In fact, before I encountered this incident, I always thought that the parallel universe theory and the innumerable world theory were just ideas of those scholars. The result of opening up. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be true." Bede also imitated his appearance, shrugged his shoulders, and said helplessly, "Hey, who is not? I was just a novel writer, who would have thought that I would encounter such a thing? So you're still a novelist? Amazing!" Shadow Spider gave a thumbs up. Bede laughed awkwardly, "What kind of novelist? It's just for a living. What about you? What do you do?" Shadow Spider said, "I am a private detective who specializes in fighting against those evil capitalists. By the way, I collect some useful news and sell it to newspapers to make a little money to survive." Pete nodded slightly. It seemed that this person's living conditions were not much better than those of Toby Spider. "So, detective, where should we go next?" Bede asked. Regardless of whether he has the ability of Spider-Man, anyway, he decided to hug the thigh of the shadow Spider-Man in front of him. Maybe the hope of returning to their own world lies in the other party. The shadow spider pointed to the outside of the alley. "I don't have any clues. Why don't you go to the street first to look for clues and so on? Thinking about the good, maybe there is a Spider-Man in this world? We can go find him's help." "Makes sense," Peter responded with a smile. Afterwards, his smile stagnated, and an idea appeared in his mind again. "Yes." Pete lightly tapped his left palm with his right fist, and said quickly in a slightly excited tone, "As far as I know, Jin Bin is the mortal enemy of Spider-Man. If there is Jin Bin in this world, then there is Spider-Man. The probability is also very high. Although your description is a bit strange, it is still very logical," the shadow spider agreed. "Then, tell me about your plan." "There are 3 schools of thought." Peter held out his hand. "The first one, we find a taller building to stay. Spider-Man will swing his spider webs between the streets, so there is a higher chance of bumping into him. Even if we can't touch him, we can find some places in the city faster, restless places, like car accidents, robberies, fires, etc. Surely Spider-Man wouldn't let these things go by, would he?" The shadow spider nodded. Peter stretched out his second finger. "Second, we can look for Spider-Man's apartment, or the house where Aunt May lives. If I remember correctly, they should be in Queens, right?" The shadow spider nodded again. "However, the era of my world is different from this world. My experience is invalid, and the address must be wrong. Let's start with the first one, then," Bede said. "It is good." As he said that, the shadow spider raised his hand and shot out a thread of spider silk, and in the blink of an eye, it appeared on the roof. "Bede, without me. What is the behavior of the 6th child?" He looked at the wall in front of him, and then at his hands, feeling a little moved. "Why don't you try?" Thinking, he stretched out his hands and tentatively placed them on the wall. The cold touch was transmitted to his body through the fingertips, making him shiver uncontrollably. Immediately, a strange feeling naturally appeared in his mind. His hands really stuck to the wall. It is the effect of biological static electricity. And biostatic electricity is one of Spider-Man's signature skills. Pedro lifted his left hand up a bit more. Stick again. And then the right hand. No more coming out. He found that his feet could not cling to the wall, probably because the shoes blocked the biological static electricity. It's really inconvenient not to have the spider suit, Pedro muttered, and then let go of his hands. Gah, it's stuck. Release your hands and let me go, give Grandpa loose. Pedro recited it silently over and over again in his mind. The ability that has just been awakened cannot be retracted freely. What are you doing? The shadow spider came back here at some point. With his hands and feet attached to a thread, he hung upside down from the roof and over Pedro's head. Old Bede blushed. This was really a scene of social death. It's not terrible to be stuck on the wall by your own ability, but the terrible thing is to be seen by others. Fortunately, Shadow Spider didn't mean to laugh at him. He stretched out a hand and patted Pedro on the shoulder. Man, you have to relax, they are your abilities, your organs, and your partners. You have to believe it and feel it. My ability, my organ, my partner? B didn't respond, but his heart was constantly fluctuating following the words of the shadow spider. Next moment. Slap! He fell to the ground. Fortunately, he only climbed more than 2 meters high, minus his own 1.8 meters, and he just couldn't stand still and fell on his butt. But Bede didn't care about this, instead he was a little excited. He seems to have really mastered the art. Immediately stood up, took off his shoes, and put his hands on the wall again. Senkenseng, climbed more than 3 meters. Then, let go of your hand again. Snapped. Keep your feet on the ground. This time, he didn't fall down. The moment he fell, he felt a natural sense of balance, and naturally stood firm. Climb again, fall again. Climb again, fall again. In this way, after repeating it several times, Pedro has completely mastered this ability. Today, he can already climb up and down the wall at will. In the process, he also discovered many changes in himself. Not just climbing walls. His physical fitness has also been greatly improved, and he fell from a 5-meter-high wall without incident at all. Well, this is normal for Spider-Man. But in the eyes of B, who was still an ordinary person not long ago, it is undoubtedly a qualitative improvement. Not only that, but he also found that his brain was also developed. My memory has been enhanced, and I can basically think clearly about the games I have played and the movies I have watched before. This is also reflected in language. His own English level is really good, he can read English books, watch American dramas with raw meat, etc., but if he really wants to communicate with people on a daily basis, he may become blind when it comes to some uncommon words. But now, he could easily talk to the shadow spider. He didn't notice this point just now, but it was done naturally. There is also vision. In this alley, the lights are actually relatively dim, but he can still see things clearly. In addition, the spider sense triggered when meeting the shadow spider for the first time. The promise was obvious. After being bitten by that inexplicable spider, he really has the potential to become Spider-Man. The reason why it is only potential, rather than directly becoming Spider-Man, is because Spider-Man not only represents ability, but also represents a kind of spirit. Then set a small goal first, let yourself be equipped with the ability on the ground first, and become a real Spider-Man. End of this chapter. Chapter 4: The Death of Spider-Man. On the roof. Pedro tightened his thin pajamas and wore a pair of large pants, shivering in the cold wind. Beside him stood Shadow Spider-Man. I kind of regret the proposal, Bede trembled. The shadow spider kept wandering the streets below, trying to find traces of Spider-Man in this world, and asked without looking back, "Why do you say that?" Bede looked at the shadow spider, which was a black battlesuit converted from a flying suit, and a large windbreaker that looked very warm at first glance, and said in a bad mood, "I passed it on at home for no reason. I was about to go to bed when I came here. It's freezing to death." The shadow spider turned its head, as if it had noticed Bede's embarrassment. He quickly took off his coat and threw it to Bede. "If you don't mind, you can wear mine first, but I don't know if the world will accept my money. Maybe we can go and buy you a suit? But my money is also not much, if you can't afford something too good." It's okay, let's get down to business first. Your coat is quite warm, thank you." Pedro draped the coat over the pajamas, and the windbreaker, which was as long as his knees, still showed his two calves, but it was better than nothing powerful. And it is more beautiful than wearing big pants. At least it's less embarrassing. After the two stayed on the roof for half an hour, they still found nothing. "Did I guess wrong? There is only Jin Bin in this world, but no Spider-Man." Bede was a little unconfident. The shadow spider didn't know what to do. He suggested, "If it doesn't work, let's try the second plan and find out about Spider-Man, Peter Parker, Aunt May, Uncle Ben, Mary Jane and others. Well, maybe you can also look for the Daily Bugle," Bede suggested. Just as the two were about to turn around and go downstairs to the darker corner on the other side, they reached the street. On a big screen on the street not far away, a picture suddenly lit up. On the screen, it was actually a Spider-Man wearing a red and blue spider suit. "This is Spider-Man Peter Parker." Bede looked at the screen with some excitement. There really is a Spider-Man in this world. But, how could he appear on the big screen? Before he could react, the picture on the screen began to play. The first thing that appeared was a hostess in formal attire, with a trace of sorrow on her face. She said slowly in a low tone. "And now for a special message, a heavy one. Our hero, Spider-Man, left us today. His death is related to another mysterious earthquake event in Brooklyn today. It has been confirmed by multiple sources that Peter Parker, a 26-year-old graduate student and part-time photographer, has been playing the role of Spider-Man for more than a decade." Then, a photo appeared on the big screen. It was a photo of a young blonde. "The Spider-Man of this world, a picture of Peter Parker. There is also Spider-Man in this world, but, is he dead?" Both Peter and Shadow Spider stared blankly at the screen. Some couldn't believe their eyes. How could Spider-Man die? In which work did he die? Peter racked his brains, searching in his mind the many movies, animations, and games he had watched about Spider-Man, but he couldn't find any clues. However, this Spider-Man looks a bit like Garfield, but with different hair colors. The few Spider-Man he knew had black-brown hair, none blonde. There is no plot of Spider-Man dying. The shadow spider on the side silently read the news on the screen, and then shrugged. "Bid, it seems that our plan has failed, and our companions in this world seem to be unlucky." His words sounded a bit playful, but his voice was very low. Obviously, seeing the death of Spider-Man in this world hit him hard. "Since this is the case, we have no choice but to implement the second plan." Bede was also a little indescribably sad. "Probably my favorite hero passed away suddenly like this, or maybe I also have a similar ability now, so things hurt other people." Afterwards, the two of them didn't talk anymore. After confirming the direction, they walked silently along the street. They were in Brooklyn now, and it was a long way to go to Queens. It's a pity that Bede is not the type who can produce his own spider silk, so even if he has the ability of Spider-Man, he will not be able to swing all the way with the shadow spider. Simply speaking, they were just searching and collecting information at the same time. Without a clear goal, they couldn't talk about being in a hurry. And the shadow spider's shadow battlesuit is just like his name, very low-key. Even if he is walking on the street, it is difficult to attract the attention of others. First they went to the Daily Bugle. After all, it is a big company, so it is the easiest to find. But at night, there is not even a person on duty in the building. Bede had no choice but to lament that these people really don't have the spirit of 996. I don't want any blessings, alas. In the next few hours, the two searched for several familiar addresses in his world according to the Shadow Spider's memory. But obviously, although they may be parallel universes to each other, the difference is still very large. In the end, both of them got nothing. Just when they were at a loss, they found a place bustling with people. Even though it was night, the lights were brightly lit, and it seemed that many people had gathered. This is not very common in the environment of Eagle Country. It's almost 12 midnight now. The two looked at each other and decided to go and have a look. Anyway, they don't have a clue now. Turning the corner, they finally saw the scene there. In the open space in front of a single-family house, a large group of people stood. There were reporters, residents who bowed their heads in silence, and police officers. However, what attracted the most attention were the two people surrounded by reporters. Two women. A mature woman who is about 25 or years old, slender and well-proportioned, is very charming, but she is leaning on the threshold and crying silently. The other is an old woman who looks to be in her 50s. Her hair is already graying. It can be seen from her expression that she must be very sad at the moment, but she is still holding back tears and dealing with the reporters. That's Mary Jane and Aunt May. The Shadow Spider said excitedly, striding forward. However, Pedro grabbed him and pulled him back around the corner to hide. Dude, what's the matter? The Shadow Spider was puzzled. They searched for it all night, and now they finally found it. Why didn't they go there? But B pointed at the crowd of onlookers. Look there. There was a stretched Lincoln sedan parked on the street, and a burly man in a white suit sat in the car. He has a round figure, like a sumo wrestler, and he is obviously wearing a special oversized suit, which is still bulging by him. Golden Bean. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. That's Jin Bin? It's different from the one in my world. Shadow Spider immediately lowered his voice. Although the Jin Bin in his world was also very strong, it was still within the range that normal people could understand. And this one in front of you? Of course he chose to believe Pete. Pete is his kind after all. And Jin Bing, no matter which world he is in, is so bad that he oozes pus. Of course B didn't know Jin Bin in this world, but the image of Jin Bin in front of him was exactly the same as the one in the 94 version of Spider-Man in his impression. He looks fat, but it's actually 90% muscle, not fat. This makes his strength so amazing that he can even punch through a wall with his bare hands. He also has very superb fighting skills, almost representing the top level of native humans in the Marvel Universe, no mutation, no technology plug-ins, etc. But don't think that he is a fool. In fact, his mind is also very smart, with extremely meticulous thinking. On the surface, he is a great philanthropist and entrepreneur. He cooperates with many companies, and often carries out some charity activities, but secretly he is the largest underground leader in Eagle Country. According to incomplete statistics, 40% of the entire Eagle Country the criminal activities all come from him. And his opponents are also big names: Daredevil, Punisher, Spider-Man, and even the Fantastic Four and X-Men have fought against him. To be able to live so well under the battles of so many superheroes is to know how powerful this guy is. Bede even suspected that the sudden arrival of himself and the Shadow Spider into this world was related to Kingpin. Facing such a difficult opponent, one cannot be too careful. The good news is that Kim should not have known about their arrival yet. The enemy is clear and we are dark, and the advantage is mine. So, under the cover of night, the two quietly climbed up to the roof, lay down on the roof and watched below, preparing to see what Jinpin wanted to do. On the street, a long news van was parked. A reporter I had seen on the screen not long ago was standing in front of Aunt May with a microphone, interviewing her. "May I ask, when did you first know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man?" Aunt May looked at him coldly, without saying a word. "Do you support your nephew engaging in such a dangerous profession?" "Excuse me?" The reporter asked one question after another. These questions are like knives, piercing the old man's heart fiercely, making the broken heart drip blood again. With the stabbing of the knives, Aunt May, who was able to manage her emotions well, could no longer hold back. She turned around abruptly, covered her mouth, and sobbed silently. But these reporters seemed to have no intention of letting go of these two poor women, and want to use long guns and short cannons to deal with them. These disgusting bastards! Bede was furious. The shadow spider on the side was also cold-hearted, as expected. No matter which world you are in, journalists are so annoying. At this time, a burly figure squeezed through the crowd and entered the small courtyard. "It's Jin Bin." Relying on his burly figure, he stood between Aunt May and the reporters. "Okay. Let me tell you, big reporters, I think you should go back and rest." Jin Bing's figure, which was several times bigger than ordinary people, completely covered Aunt May. Of course, his fame also played a good role. Reporters turned their cameras and microphones to him. "Hello, Mr. Fisk, may I ask why you are here?" Jin Bin looked at the reporter who asked the question, with a sad expression on his face. "Spider-Man and I are very good friends, I have always admired him very much, I think he is a real hero." "Oh, what a hero he is, good man. I never thought that the disaster would be so ruthless that it would take his life." Both Peter and the shadow spider had puzzled expressions on their faces. "Why is this gold different from what I remembered? Why is this kingpin so different from the one in my world? Could it be that Jin Bin has changed his ways? Or is it because of the parallel universe that Jin in this world is actually a good person?" Peter faintly felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't say it. However, he still has reservations about whether Jin Bin is a good person or not. Of course, stereotypes are not desirable. But he remembered that in the '94 version of Spider-Man, Kim had always been a person who was very good at hiding. His public image and his real face are two completely different people. Facing so many reporters below, maybe he is just maintaining his public image. Fortunately, the shadow spider didn't act impulsively. The two continued to read. Next, Jin was eloquent and answered a few questions from the reporters, expressing how close he was to Spider-Man and Peter Parker. Then, in front of reporters, he invited Aunt May and Mary Jane to a charity dinner he hosted for Spider-Man. He also said that he would create a charitable foundation in the name of Spider-Man to help those in need. The euphemistic name is, "To Continue the Spirit of Spider-Man." What I said was tearful and touching, and it was money and effort. Half an hour later, even the two preconceived people, Bede and Shadow Spider, were about to feel that Jin in this world was really a good person. The reporters below and the ordinary citizens who came to express their condolences gradually dispersed, and Jin Bing also got on the extended version of Lincoln and left amidst the praise of everyone. "Shall we go out now?" Pete looked at the shadow spider, wanting to ask for his opinion. However, he soon discovered that the current state of the shadow spider was very wrong. His body unexpectedly appeared in colorful colors, and several places were distorted. "Mr. Shadow Spider? Mr. Shadow Spider!" Bee didn't even dare to reach out to touch him, for fear of causing any secondary damage. Fortunately, after a few seconds, this situation disappeared. The shadow spider let out a long breath. "Damn it, what's going on? I didn't have this strange disease before. Could it be acclimatization?" Bede made a conjecture. When people arrive in a new environment, because of the changes in the environment they live in, it may cause some temporary discomfort in the body. However, Spider-Man's body should be very strong, and the genes are mutated, so will he still be acclimatized? The shadow spider hesitated for a moment, then shook his head, it feels different, that feeling is very, very painful, as if an egg fell from the sky and hit a rock. His Bede took a breath, it hurt so much just hearing this description, then you can actually endure it. The shadow spider chuckled, and pointed to the extended version of Lincoln that disappeared at the corner of the street. What can I do? I don't trust that guy. That's it, Pete gave a thumbs up. Okay, the idlers are leaving, I think we'd better go see Aunt May and the others. Saying that, the shadow spider got up and walked over there. End of this chapter. Chapter 6 Meet Aunt May. In front of the cottage. Mary Jane had already left, and she was walking with Jin Bin, saying that she wanted to discuss the specific matters of the charity dinner in a few days. Only Aunt May and the mess were left in place. B was going to go straight down, but the shadow spider held him back. He pointed to a corner diagonally ahead. Don't move, there is a small eye over there, probably left by Jin Bin. Kingpin. Bede was slightly startled and stopped quickly. He curiously looked in the direction of the shadow spider finger, but saw nothing. But he believed that the shadow spider would definitely not be aimless. So the two changed their minds and walked directly from the shadow on the other side to Aunt May's backyard. The backyard is not big, but it is well maintained. There is a small lawn, a lawnmower in one corner, and a shed on the other side, which is probably a utility room for storing sundries, but I don't know why not put the lawnmower back in the utility room. Looking at the locked backyard door, Aunt May's heartbroken expression appeared in Bede's mind unconsciously. He nudged the shadow spider. Dude, are you going to knock on the door? Go ahead, I'm not very good at it. What? Is there a saying about whether you are good at knocking on the door? Of course. As you know, I'm a private detective, so I usually choose to go there. The shadow spider shrugged, with a natural tone, and then pointed to the top. That's the window on the second floor. Pete, what you said makes sense, but I'm speechless. But you, like the Spider-Man in this world, are named Peter Parker, and you look similar to him, so I think you are more suitable, Bede analyzed earnestly. In fact, the main reason was that he didn't know how to face the bereaved old man, and he didn't know how to comfort him, so he wanted the shadow spider to go. But you're Peter too, dude, shadow spider probably thought similarly to him, and didn't want to go either. No, I am Bede, B is my last name, and A is my first name. Oh. Fantastic Hangzia's name. But it still doesn't change the fact that we are all of the same kind. The shadow spider said with an exaggerated exclamation expression. That's right, you are a spider, and I am a spider, and we are all little spiders. You don't know me, I don't know you, so it's okay for you to knock on the door, right? Bede said a series of raps, and successfully knocked out the shadow. The spider was stunned. Okay, you won. The shadow spider walked towards the door helplessly, turning around and said, but to be honest, I quite agree with the last sentence. For no other reason, I'm just talking nonsense to you. Ability, I feel very kind. Peta, falls, where am I talking nonsense? Dong dong dong. There was silence in the room. After a while, there was a sound of footsteps approaching slowly. The sound of footsteps was very light, and it was obvious that the other party had deliberately kept it down. However, the enhanced hearing of Ebed and the shadow spider could still distinguish them. Who? It's too late now. If you want to interview something, come back tomorrow, Aunt May's voice sounded. The shadow spider coughed lightly, and said, Hey, Aunt May, it's me. I'm Peter, but Peter from another world. Peter. Aunt May's voice obviously raised, and soon lowered again, but her pace was obviously a little faster. Do you have any evidence? A shadow spider turned its head and sent a help-seeking expression. B took a few steps forward, took off his hood, and with both hands together, put his face in front of the cat so that Aunt May could see it. Hey, the man under the hood showed a smile that was uglier than crying. Obviously he didn't smile often, and he looked very awkward. The shadow spider is about 27 or years old, but perhaps because of his personality and experience, he looks old, and looks like he is in his 30s. This definitely belongs in the old warrior category in Spider-Man. However, they had seen the appearance of Spider-Man in this world under the mask before. He was probably 25 or years old, which made him look younger than Shadow Spider. But as long as you are not face blind, you can basically see the extremely high similarity between the two at a glance. Dang! Grunt! There was a sound of metal falling to the ground. The door was flung open, and a baseball bat rolled out, landing on the next step, and just as it was about to fall again, Bede stooped to catch it. But the shadow spider was already tightly hugged by Aunt May. Peter the old man trembled, very excited. The shadow spider was stiff at first, but soon probably felt his Aunt May's warmth from this Aunt May, and gently hugged Aunt May back. At this moment, Aunt May's body softened. The shadow spider quickly hugged her, walked all the way to the living room, and then put her on the sofa. "What's wrong with her?" Peter asked, putting the baseball bat aside. The shadow spider made a soft movement, and said in a low voice, "Great sadness and joy, exhausted mentally, let her take a good rest." Seeing this, Bee nodded. The two found a place to sit down, and decided to rest for a while. Because of their relationship as newcomers, their spirits have always been tense. Now that I have suddenly arrived in a safe environment, after relaxing, I also feel a little tired. After sitting down, both of them fell asleep. Pat! In the middle of the night, a voice suddenly sounded. Peter snapped his eyes open. The supervision enhanced by the spider's ability allowed him to focus quickly, and a huge and burly figure soon appeared in front of him. Could it be Jinping? Bede was startled suddenly, and his body reacted subconsciously. He jumped upside down and hung upside down on the ceiling. The shadow spider on the other side was also awakened and responded, but he was the first to come to the sofa where Aunt May was lying. "Who are you?" A crisp lowly voice sounded, and the burly figure raised his hands, posing in a fighting pose. It was only then that Bee realized that the figure was not Jinping. It's not even human, but a red and blue spherical robot, but the robot also has hands and feet on its body, and it stands like a human being. This familiar color scheme immediately reminded Bede of Spider-Man's suit. But a robot version of Spider-Man? Still a lowly voice? How strange! At this time, the robot spoke again. "Hey, you can actually stick to the wall like a spider. Are you also a Spider-Man? Are there two Spider-Man in this world? Are you here for Spider-Man? Are you Spider-Man too?" Bede asked his own question. But in fact, he already believed it to a certain extent. He thought that the feeling of waking himself up in his sleep seemed to be quite similar to the spider sense when he saw the shadow spider before. "It's just that I was sleeping at that time and didn't feel it carefully." Pat! The lid of the robot opened, and a lowly wearing a JK short skirt jumped out. "Oh, I'm sorry, my name is Penny Parker, and this is my partner Spider/Spider, please give me your advice." Laurie bent down and bowed in a very polite manner. End of this chapter. Chapter 7 Penny and Spider-Ham. Hey! ×3. Pete, Shadow Spider, and Aunt May, who just woke up, looked at this little lowly and the spider mech beside her in surprise. Through the self-introduction of the other party, they have confirmed the identity of the other party. Obviously, this is another Spider-Man from a parallel universe. And it's a little lowly Spider-Man wearing a mecha as a battlesuit. Aunt May's eyes were bent into two crescent moons. She sat up from the sofa, walked to Penny Parker, touched her little head, and then took her little hand. "Penny, right? Come on, sit down first, take your time, explain." Penny obediently followed Aunt May to the sofa and sat down. After glancing at Bee and the shadow spider, she was ready to talk about herself. At this time, there was a clang in the kitchen. The shadow spider's expression changed, and he quickly dodged to the kitchen door. Bede was a little slower, but quickly reached the other side. Penny and her spider mech are also at the ready. Bee and the shadow spider peeked into the kitchen from left to right. However, the scene in front of them left them dumbfounded. I saw the refrigerator door in the kitchen was wide open. On the side table, stood a half-human tall piglet, wearing a red and blue spider suit, and the hood on its head was removed, revealing its flowery pig's head. At this time, it is holding a bottle of milk with both hands, drinking tons and tons. Is this a pig? Shadow Spider asked in surprise. Really? Bee was also a little dumbfounded, but I can be sure, he should be another similar, right? This is not difficult to understand, just look at the spider suit. As for why there is Spider Ham, who knows, this is probably a parallel universe. Hey! You guys! I heard you! The pig inside suddenly put down the milk, turned his head and shouted, "What do you mean this is a pig? What's the tone? What's wrong with the pig? The pig eats your house rice." As soon as Spider Pigman jumped, he came to the shadow spider, with his hands and feet stuck to the door frame, and the pig's nose arched on the shadow spider's nose, and there was a bump. Bede's heart trembled, he noticed that this Spider Ham was faster than him and the shadow spider. I'm sorry, the shadow spider spread out her hands, I was just surprised to see your unique shape, there is no other meaning. Wow! Cute little piggy! Penny's little head squeezed in between Bede and Shadow Spider, looking up at Spider Pigman. Hi! Little piggy, my name is Penny Parker. That's my close friend Spider, please give me your advice. Spider Ham looked down at Penny, and said with a smile, Hi, little Penny, my name is Peter Poke. Seeing this, PETA and the Shadow Spider briefly exchanged their names. The previous tense atmosphere in the room was gone. Several people sat down on the sofa again and introduced themselves. Shadow Spider-Man, whose full name is Peter Benjamin Parker, was still in 1939, just after the Great Depression. In his world, there is no power that comes with great responsibility, but if those in power cannot be trusted, it is the people's responsibility to remove them. Uncle Ben was murdered by Osborn for launching a strike. Ulrich of the Daily Bugle took advantage of the Shadow Spider's anger and hired him as a reporter for the newspaper. While investigating Osborn's smuggling activities, he was accidentally bitten by a spider in a cultural relic, saw the spider god Anansi in a coma, and then gained the spider ability. By chance, he discovered the affair between Ulrich and Osborn, and then he resigned and became a private detective, starting to fight against those rich and heartless capitalists and corrupt officials. Since gaining the spider ability in 1933, he has been fighting for 6 years and is a spider warrior with rich combat experience. Penny Parker, nicknamed Spider Mecha Girl, is 14 years old this year. Her spider mech Spider was inherited from her father who passed away unexpectedly, and Uncle Ben and Aunt May in her world were 2 scientists and her father's former partner and combat aide. What makes Bede interesting is that, from her description, her world seems to be Eva's world. Rei Ayanami and Asuka are both Penny Parker's classmates. I just don't know if they are the 2 Bede thinks of. As for Spider Hogman Peter Poke, he comes from a universe composed of anthropomorphic animals. B seems to have a little impression of this universe, but he should only have seen a little bit, and even the enhanced memory can't get much information. Spider-Ham was originally a humanoid spider who was bitten by his Aunt May, an anthropomorphic pig, and became what he is now. It is said that Aunt May, an anthropomorphic pig, developed a hairdryer with atomic energy in order to dominate the hairdressing industry. As a result, the atomic energy leaked and she fell into a berserk state, biting poor little Peter. After becoming a pig, Spider Pigman retained some of his abilities as a spider, but lost one of his hands and became a 4-legged animal like a pig. Bede also briefly introduced his situation to them. Compared with the other three, his resume is too thin. After all, he is a pure newcomer who has just been bitten by a spider, and even the spider ability is just guided by the shadow spider. So you don't even have your own suit? Spider-Ham said. Peeta nodded, yeah, I don't even have spider silk. Where do you get your spider silk? The shadow spider said, after gaining the ability, I dreamed of Anansi, and when I woke up, I found that I had the ability to spin silk. Spider-Ham, born. Penny patted the spider mech next to her, I can't spin silk, but it can. Spider Mecha, smiley face, Pete, I shouldn't have asked, I'm so stupid, there really isn't a normal person here. He thought about the 5 versions of Spider-Man he had seen. Toby spiders, like shadow spiders, are of the type that produce their own silk. Garfield relies on its own mind. Dutch spider fights for father, Godfather is also father. The 9-4 spiders are also synthesized by themselves, they are high-achieving students. As for the super spider, his nanosuit material was stolen from Godstick. It is known that I am not the type to produce silk by myself, so I have to figure it out myself. Peeta expressed a little headache. He is not the kind of academic genius like Garfield Spider and 9-4 Spider. How can he know how to synthesize spider silk? At this time, Aunt May on the side probably saw Bede's embarrassment. She clapped her hands lightly and said, well, maybe I can help you. Aunt May. Peeta turned his head curiously, not knowing how she could help him. Could it be that Aunt May in this world is also a scientist? Aunt May stood up, looked at the little spiders in the room, showed a kind smile on her face, and said, children, come with me. End of this chapter. Chapter 8 The Spider Cave. Bede and the others followed Aunt May and walked towards the backyard of the cottage. The small eyes that Jinbin left behind were probably just for keeping an eye on something, and did not reach the level of surveillance. Anyway, the few Spider-Man present didn't find anything unusual, so B, a newcomer, naturally didn't say much. Soon, they walked through the small courtyard and came to the utility room. Could it be that Spider-Man in this world left his battlesuit in the utility room? A thought popped up in Bede's mind. At this time, Aunt May took out a key and twisted it on the ordinary-looking door lock. Hum. Amidst a slight hum, a string of complicated-looking codes appeared on the door lock and jumped, followed by a faint red light. Under the surprised eyes of Bede and the others, this seemingly ordinary wooden door instantly turned into a high-tech door made of all metal. The metal door slid open to both sides, revealing the elevator behind. Aunt May walked in first, and then greeted, "Come in, children." Seeing this, Bede and the others quickly followed in. After standing still, the elevator starts and begins to descend rapidly. Bede was also looking around curiously. Dong dong dong. He reached out and tapped the wall of the elevator, only to find that it was made of some kind of hard alloy. Aunt May introduced, "This is the basement and safe house built by Peter. The upper house can resist missile bombing, the underground part is 100 meters deep underground, and you don't need to worry about nuclear bombs hiding in it." There was some pride in her tone. Obviously, this Aunt May is very open-minded and very supportive of the cause of this world's Spider-Man. "Lucky for him," whispered the Shadow Spider. His Aunt May thought that Spider-Man was a masked maniac hiding in the dark, and kept a respectful distance from him, so he never dared to tell Aunt May about his identity, even the slightest bit. This is probably also a problem that many Spider-Man needs to face together. To become a hero, you must be able to endure suffering that is unbearable for ordinary people. Although Bede has not personally experienced these, he has seen several Spider-Man works, and he can probably know what he is thinking from the tone of Shadow Spider. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the Shadow Spider's shoulder. "Hey, you still have good partners like us." The Shadow Spider smiled, and wrapped his arms around his shoulders. The two of them suddenly hooked their shoulders together, causing Penny, Spider-Ham and Spider-Mech to look puzzled. A cute little question mark popped up directly on the screen of the Spider-Mech. Wow, look quickly! At this moment, Penny suddenly exclaimed. Bede and others looked around. I saw that as the elevator continued to descend, lights lit up all around, illuminating this underground space as bright as day. It's so empty here. Row upon row of platforms suspended with some kind of special spider silk are arranged one after another, which is truly spectacular. And on each platform, there are some different things. There are everything from computers and TVs to small planes, cars, and motorcycles. Bede also saw some machines that looked high-end at first glance, but whose purpose was unknown, and were placed on several platforms. This reminded him of the Batcave of the Master of DC next door. If this is the case, it should probably be called the Spider Cave? Or Pansidong. It's a pity that the young lady who is not wearing a swimsuit is taking a bath. Beiji has a ready-made one. Bede glanced at Spider-Pig, thinking impolitely in his mind. Fortunately, at this time, Spider-Hogman, like Shadow Spider and others, was observing the spider hole, exclaiming turtle. Apparently none of them thought that there was a black chicken hidden under the ground. Soon, the elevator fell to the bottom. At Aunt May's signal, everyone walked down. Whoa! The surrounding lights suddenly turned on. A larger and wider hall appeared in front of Bede and the others. The first thing that catches the eye is a row of cabinets containing various styles of spider suits. Roughly counting, there are actually 12 sets. And after Peeta took a closer look, he found that he recognized them all. Negative Space Ghost Battle Suit. Insulated Suit. Advanced Suit. Iron Spider Suit. Secret War Suit. Scarlet Spider Battle Suit. Anti-Spider Suit. Stealth Suit. Spider Armor Mark 1 Generation. Spider Armor Mark 2 Generation. Classic Red and Blue Battle Suit. Cloak Battle Suit. Each set has its own origin. For example, the insulating suit is the anti-electron suit developed by Spider-Man to deal with the electron. The movie version of the Dutch Spider's appearance against the electron is exactly this, but the reason for this has been changed in the movie version. The advanced battle suit is one of the most popular battle suits in the game Marvel Spider-Man. The very close-fitting suit style fully shows Spider-Man's figure, and instantly changes from a small fresh meat to a big muscle bully, the favorite of macho men. There is also the Iron Spider battle suit. In the movie version, this is a high-tech battle suit made by Iron Man named Mentor but actually a godfather for the big boy Dutch Spider. Not only has memory nanometal been selected as the main material, but also a very advanced artificial intelligence assistant has been built in, and it is equipped with various excellent spider silk solutions, which greatly enhances Spider-Man's combat power. Bede looked around and felt that his saliva was about to flow down. But at the same time, he also raised a question: what is the origin of Spider-Man in this world? Why did he hide so many styles of spider suits in his spider cave? And the battle suit with the cloak inside, wouldn't that cloak belong to Doctor Strange? Bede has infinite curiosity about the Spider-Man who died for unknown reasons in this world. This must be a very powerful Spider-Man. At the same time, he also had some inexplicable worries in his heart. Although he doesn't believe in fatalism or conspiracy theories, based on his experience watching Marvel movies, the gathering of superheroes often means that supervillains are about to do something. And now, except for his half-baked guy, there are already 3 Spider-Man gathered here. Plus a Spider-Man from this world who died unexpectedly. Obviously, there is a 99% probability that something big will happen next. Even the senior Spider-Man who is so powerful in this world is dead. With his current strength, can he really survive safely? Hey, man, what are you thinking about? At this time, the Shadow Spider patted his shoulder. Bede turned away. The Shadow Spider pointed to the other side. Aunt May is asking you to go over. Bede quickly looked over there. Sure enough, Aunt May was waving to him not far away. That bead from the east, come here quickly. Bead didn't know why, so he walked over quickly. Aunt May was then seen standing next to a high-tech machine, smiling at him. Son, you're here. This is the sewing machine left by Peter's kid. It's actually a 3D printer. You can impromptu design the style on the screen over there. After confirmation, the sewing machine will help you print the clothes are done. End of this chapter. Chapter 9 Bead's Spider Suit. Wow! Peter exclaimed, and walked quickly to the sewing machine. Sewing machine is obviously the pet name given to it by its previous owner, the Spider-Man of this world. Well, such a sloppy name was obviously chosen on the brain. But this does not affect its high technology. Sewing machine. The whole thing looks like a lying T shape. There is an empty clothes rack in the vertical cabinet, which is probably where the finished products are stored. The horizontal one is an extension. The computer board is obviously the console. After Aunt May reached out and operated on the computer board, a virtual screen popped up from the computer board. She took a step aside and signaled, "Now you can do whatever you want." As for the materials, there are spandex, Kevlar fiber, ultra-high molecular polyethylene fiber, aramid fiber, polyamide fiber. In short, there are many. The old woman can't remember everything. But the characteristics, advantages and disadvantages of each material are marked, and you can decide which material to use where. Bede nodded in confusion while listening. He really didn't understand. In that series of material names, except for spandex, which he knew was a kind of elastic fiber, and Kevlar fiber, which was often used as a material for body armor, he didn't know any of the rest. Who would go out of their way to learn about various fiber materials? Unless it is for a major or job. Fortunately, what Aunt May said later made him breathe a sigh of relief. If this is the case, then even if he doesn't know anything about material science, he should be able to understand it, right? Thinking about it, Bede clicked on the materials column. Meta-aramid, polyamphenylene isophthalamide fiber, one of the aramid fibers, has good mechanical properties, is a flame-retardant fiber, limiting oxygen index, Loy 29%, will not be exposed in the air, spontaneous combustion, self-extinguishing after leaving the fire, good flame retardancy, glass transition temperature 270 degrees Celsius. When the temperature exceeds 400 degrees Celsius, the fiber becomes brittle and carbonized, forming a heat insulation layer, which plays a protective role. The dielectric constant is very low and the insulation is good. Para-aramid fiber, polyparaphenylene terephthalamide fiber, one of the aramid fibers, is made by spinning polymer liquid crystal. Features: high strength, high modulus, high temperature resistance, impact resistance, tensile strength is 3.0 GPa 5.5 GPa, which is 3 times that of steel wire. Aramid resin-based reinforced composite materials have low density and light weight, and can be used as structural materials for aircraft, rockets, and other aircraft. Multi-layer para-aramid fabrics can be used as body armor and bulletproof helmets after high-temperature stamping. Disadvantages: the surface of para-aramid fibers lack of active genes, poor adhesion to the resin interface. Bede. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? Isn't this bullying? Can normal people understand this? But he also knew that this was general enough. Which of these polymer fiber materials is not an excellent work of modern industry? If you really want to list the advantages and disadvantages, each one can write tens of thousands of words. Thinking about it, Peter patiently watched one by one slowly. After watching a lot, I have also summed up some skills and rules. PBO fiber, lightweight, high strength, high modulus, high temperature resistance, creep resistance, wear resistance, chemical resistance, high flexibility, generally used for high temperature resistant flame retardant flight suits, firefighting suits, high temperature conveyor belts, protective gloves, etc. Carbon fiber composite material, high strength, high modulus, conductive, high temperature resistance, corrosion resistance, fatigue resistance, thermal expansion coefficient is approximately 0, recommended for use as internal circuit material of combat uniforms. Glass fiber, high tensile strength, small thermal conductivity, good heat resistance, low dielectric constant, poor electrical conductivity. Disadvantages: small stretch, poor distortion resistance, and prone to brittle fracture. As long as some of the more professional vocabulary is removed and the corresponding material is selected based on its performance, advantages and disadvantages, it will be much easier to understand. At this time, Spider Pigman, Shadow Spider, and Penny also came to him one after another. They were all very interested in what kind of spider suit Bede would make. Because the spider suit reflects a person's character in a sense. It's like buying a car. Models, colors, stickers, etc., may all reflect a person's inner thoughts, personality, and the like. I think you can use this PBO fiber as the main material. Penny took a lollipop from somewhere and held it in her mouth, suggesting, "This super performance fiber has very excellent physical, mechanical, and chemical properties. Performance, its strength, and modulus are at least twice that of Kevlar fiber. A PBO thin wire with a diameter of 1 mm can easily lift a weight of 450 kg, which is more than 10 times that of steel wire fiber." A professional analysis, well-founded and convincing. What a ghost! Peeta, Shadow Spider, and Spider-Ham all looked at Penny with hellish expressions. Penny tilted her head and asked doubtfully, "Isn't this common sense? Why do you guys look at me like this?" Spider-Ham said, "Are you really only 14 years old this year?" The Shadow Spider said, "My God, you make me feel like I was just wasting my time when I was in school." Bede sighed, worshipping the boss Lolita, "You are indeed an Eva. It is really not easy to be able to drive a Gundam." Aunt May showed a kind smile and touched Penny's little head. "Little Penny is really a great genius. Since top academics have suggested this, there is no need to worry." Pete immediately selected PBO fiber as the main material of the suit, and then subconsciously looked at Penny. If there are professionals, it is natural to seek help from professionals. Penny sighed slightly, and said, "I really don't know what you are doing. You can choose 2% A187 coupling agent to improve the TIFS effect between PBO fiber and epoxy resin. Argon low-temperature plasma treatment conditions are respectively selected for 2 minutes, 30W, and 50Pa. While talking, she simply started directly and operated on the console. As she continued to input some conditions, the sewing machine on the side began to work. After a while, a spider suit with the same stature as Bede appeared on the shelf of the closet. But the current suit only has one bottom. Then, Bede said some of his own thoughts and suggestions for modification. And Penny followed his suggestion to input and adjust one by one, and different raw materials were filled into different positions. Some are overlapped, some are intertwined. Finally, based on the bottom layer, the outside is covered with several layers of materials with different functions. After about 10 minutes, the battle suit was finally finished. Bede didn't really have any idea about the appearance of the battle suit. He liked the advanced battle suit inside when he played the game before, so he chose the style of the advanced battle suit, but added some elements of his own. The colors are more distinct, and the lines are a bit tougher. It could also be a material issue. The battle suit in the game is a bit like cotton material, which is slightly bloated. The materials used in Bede's set are more close-fitting and finer, and they are more technological and aesthetic. End of this chapter. Chapter 10: The Real Cause of Spider-Man's Death. Seeing this spider suit of his own being gradually completed in the cabinet, Bede's heart became excited involuntarily. Who wouldn't want to own a spider suit? And this is not the low-quality model that is free shipping for Yuan and Yuan on a certain treasure, but a real high-tech product. Aunt May noticed Bede's excitement, and pointed in one direction. "There is a changing room over there, go and show us." "Yes." Bede nodded excitedly, and took out the battle suit from the open cabinet. The newly made battle suit has a cold feeling on the surface because it has been treated with argon gas. The polymer fiber material feels delicate and silky, just like a baby's skin, very comfortable. B can't wait to put it on. Holding the battle clothes, he ran into the changing room in a few steps, took off the pajamas on his body and put them aside, and then put on the battle clothes. The suit was baggy when not on, like a t-shirt. But it's a high-tech suit. The main reference here is the suit made by Iron Man for the Dutch Spider. In the suit, Penny made flexible circuits out of carbon fiber composite material, cleverly hiding them in the interlayer of several layers of material in the suit. At the same time, there is an energy conversion device inside the suit, which can convert the mechanical energy generated by Bede's movement while wearing the suit into electrical energy and store it. Part of this electric energy will be used as the energy for the operation of the intelligent auxiliary system built into the suit, and it can be fully released when necessary to simulate the effect of electric shock. Of course, the intensity of the electric shock was not high, probably about the same as that of an electric baton. But if this trick is used suddenly in battle, it will have a miraculous effect. No matter how strong the body is, as long as it is not completely immune to electric shocks, it will inevitably be exposed to some flaws. Even a 0.1 second of stiffness is enough to change the direction of a battle. As for the intelligent assistance system, of course it cannot be as powerful as the Karen of the Dutch Spider. However, Bede can give it some instructions directly through voice, such as marking an object and tracking and displaying the target location on an electronic map in real time, such as accessing nearby radio stations, broadcasts and other public channels to obtain news, etc. It seems that the effect is limited, but B is quite satisfied. After all, he doesn't have a team behind him, so having an intelligent assistance system can save him a lot of trouble. There are mirrors in the changing room. After putting on his combat uniform, Pedro stood in front of the full-length mirror and looked at himself. Found an unexpected fit, and it's handsome. In fact, he made a small mistake before, the suit was made too well, so it was very difficult for his figure. If it were in the past, with his figure, he would definitely not look good in this suit. But now, thanks to the strengthening of the spider gene, his abdomen has a few more abdominal muscles, and the overall body curve is also very well proportioned. He tried to squat down halfway, put one hand on the ground, and made a classic Spider-Man landing action. His strong muscles are neither too thick nor too thin, making him look like a vigorous cheetah at this moment, giving people a feeling that he is ready to go. After doing a few more moves in a row, B became more and more satisfied with himself and this suit. So perfect! After he admired it for a while, the shout of the shadow spider came from outside. "Hey, handsome boy, aren't you too shy to come out?" Only then did B realize that he seemed to have been narcissistic for a long time. He hurried out. "Wow!" Spider Pigman rushed over, tiptoed, reached out and tapped his ABS, "It's very strong, it's a good material." Penny sat on the spider mecha, and JK's calf under the short skirt swayed. "It seems that our cooperation is good. This suit is perfect." "It is indeed me." "Thank you, Penny." Bede bent down and touched Spider-Ham's hands, then waved to Penny with a smile. Then he thanked Aunt May again. After everyone frolicked for a while, the smile on Aunt May's face gradually faded. "Children, actually I have something to ask of you." Bede was the first to stand up. "Aunt May, just say what you want, as long as I can do it, I will do my best." Whether it's because of Aunt May's generous funding of his spider suit, or because of the unexpected power on his body, and the sense of mission of becoming Spider-Man, Bede has no reason to refuse. The shadow spider and the others didn't speak, but they all looked at Aunt May, waiting for her next words. Aunt May reached out and clicked on the computer beside her, and a virtual screen was projected in the center of the underground space. "Actually, I probably know how Peter died." Aunt May gritted her teeth, her eyes were slightly red. Penny hugged her waist sensibly. Aunt May lowered her head and touched Penny's hair and said, "My child, I'm fine. Afterwards, under the narration of Aunt May, Bede and the others finally figured out some things. It really has something to do with Jin Bing. Last Monday, an earthquake struck underground in Brooklyn. Because this earthquake was unusual and not caused by plate movement or anything like that, Spider-Man from this world went to investigate the cause of the earthquake. Soon, he found out that it was Jin Bin who did it. He built a huge particle collider underground in Brooklyn, trying to open the door to parallel universes, and find his late wife and son from other universes. Fortunately, Jin Bing was probably not prepared enough that time, and the experiment failed. But he was not discouraged, and planned to conduct the second collision experiment 11 days later, that is, today. The Spider-Man of this world certainly wouldn't let him get away with it. Because opening a parallel world may cause some very serious consequences. So he goes to stop the Kingpin, preparing to destroy the particle collider. Unexpectedly, his blocking action was not successful, but he lost his life. So, it was Kim who killed him. Peter's eyes widened. He still remembered seeing Kim not long ago and tearfully saying how close he and Spider-Man were, how much he adored Spider-Man, how much he loved Spider-Man. It's all about acting. And the acting skills of this guy are too good. Even Bede, who has seen the plots of other worlds and knows him well, and the Shadow Spider who fought with Jin in his own world, were almost deceived by him. No wonder everyone else is convinced of Jin Bing's identity. If this guy doesn't become a gangster but acts in a movie, he won't be able to get an Oscar. The Shadow Spider's face was serious. It is necessary to let him feel how cold the cold wind from another world is. Spider-Ham also waved his little short hand, let him see what a big pig's hooves call him. No, the most important thing is to prevent him from driving that collider again. Aunt May said with tears in her eyes. Penny looked up at Aunt May, Auntie, we will definitely stop him. Spider Mecha. End of this chapter. Chapter 11 Bede's Training Course. The next day. In the spider hole underground in the backyard of Aunt May's house. Penny and her Spider Mecha sat at the computer desk, fingers flying. She is trying to hack into Jin Bin's information database to find information about the particle collider. It's a pity that the late Spider-Man of this world didn't leave much information here, otherwise it would make this a lot easier. As for Bede, Shadow Spider, and Spider-Pig, since they couldn't help Penny, they decided to find other things to do. For example, training Bee. This is because, among the 4 people here, only Pete is the weakest. A few others. Shadow Spider has been Spider-Man for 6 years. He has rich experience in all aspects, strong fighting skills, and a revolver as a weapon. Although Spider-Ham did not say how long he has been, but his speed is faster than the Shadow Spider, and his strength is estimated to be stronger than the Shadow Spider. As for Penny, she has only been a Spider Mecha girl for a year. But in the Spider Mecha, her father's previous combat experience was stored. With the blessing of the Spider Mech, her combat effectiveness should not be underestimated. Only B. He traveled over just after acquiring the Spider ability, and his understanding of the Spider's ability was only at the level of what he knew from movies and games. At present, the only ability that is relatively proficient is climbing walls. Therefore, if you want him to contribute to the next mission against Jin Bin, it is very necessary to train him. Bede also hopes to get the training of these mature Spider-Man and master his abilities as soon as possible. For this reason, he even did not hesitate to get up early in the morning and use his home cooking skills to cook them a decent breakfast. Of course, the effect is also excellent. Not only did she get praise from Penny's sweet and soft Sigoni sauce, but she also received all the compliments from Shadow Spider and Spider-Hammon. However, their training methods are also simple and crude. It's just to fight directly. And what they use is not any systematic fighting technique or the like, but a very simple and direct attack method, striving to defeat the enemy with one blow. This is not the same as the Spider-Man in B's impression. Because he remembered that Toby Spider, Garfield Spider, and Dutch Spider were all going to fight the villain for a long time. Sometimes it is really hard to beat, but sometimes it feels soft-hearted. But he didn't feel this meaning from Shadow Spider and Spider Pigman. To this, the Shadow Spider replied. If the other party commits a lot of evil, we must seize the opportunity to thoroughly cleanse the other party's sins, so as to protect more innocent people. If the other party is small and evil, subdue him, bring him to justice, and let the law punish him. If you are kind to the wicked, who can speak out for the good when the wicked oppress the good? According to D&D's 9-camp classification, he probably belongs to the neutral good type. In general, Spider-Man is a lawful and kind-hearted type, and he is the most law-abiding and peace-loving good neighbor Spider-Man among many superheroes. Don't you see, after being possessed by Venom, Toby Spider activated the evil in his heart, and in the end he just went to ask for the salary increase he deserved, ruled the bar, and took revenge on the woman who betrayed him, that's all. If other people are blackened and don't want to rule the world, they will be sorry for the word blackened. The Shadow Spider's behavior probably has something to do with the era he lived in. During the Great Depression, capital oppression, official corruption, all kinds of darkness shrouded the ordinary people, making people breathless. And the Shadow Spider exists as a rebel. He fights against those cannibalistic capitalists, corrupt officials, and evil forces, and his methods are naturally more brutal. It is precisely because of the different times that they live in that the growth experience, responsibilities, beliefs, etc. of the Shadow Spider are also different from those that Bede knew. At this time, Bede is at the time when he has acquired abilities but has not yet created a matching character. Most of his thoughts are still at the stage of ordinary citizens in the past. The teaching of the Shadow Spider is undoubtedly to sprinkle a pot of water on his little seedling. Maybe it won't be obvious in a short time, but after a long time, it may have a subtle influence on him. Afterwards, Spider-Ham also told him some of his understanding while fighting Bede. Compared with the Shadow Spider, the concept of Spider-Ham is more peaceful, or much more chic. Although there are many villains in the cartoon animal universe he lives in, their behaviors and purposes are all strange. And Spider Pigman fights against them more to pass the time and have some fun. Children, take a break first, come out and eat something before continuing. Aunt May's voice came from the speakers in the training room. Okay, Aunt May, we're coming. Shadow Spider responded, stretched out his hand, and pulled up Bede, who was resting on the ground. How do you feel? Peeta grinned, painful and happy. Spider Pigman stretched out his hand and squeezed his calf, and said with a cheap smile, that afternoon will make you happier. Fuck. Peeta howled in pain, his body trembling. The Shadow Spider's training was very strict. After testing Bede's physical strength, he controlled his strength to a level that could just hurt Bede without hurting him. Where Bede doesn't defend well, it leaves a mark. The calf bone was kicked by the Shadow Spider just now, and it hurts a lot. However, the gains are also enormous. Under the careful guidance of the two, in just one morning, Bede changed from an ordinary person who knew nothing about fighting to a master of fighting with proficient fighting skills. If the combat power of an ordinary person is 1, then after he has acquired the spider ability, his combat power is 5. Now, with his relatively proficient fighting skills, his combat power can reach at least 10. He reckoned himself, if the current him was allowed to fight against the yesterday's him, then he would be able to deal with at least 3-5 of them at the same time. If you go through some actual combat baptism, this value can probably be doubled. This is undoubtedly a huge improvement. What are we going to practice in the afternoon? Peeta asked as he walked, rubbing the sore spot on his body. Shadow Spider glanced at him and said calmly, in the morning, I will teach you ground fighting skills. In the afternoon, I will teach you how to fight with spider silk. This is our real fighting method. Cooperate with the spider silk. Many skills flashed through Bede's mind in an instant. Spider silk swing, swing kick, spider web strike, and spider silk bomb are all commonly used skills in the game, but with his current ability, he should be able to reproduce them all. Thinking about it, Bede was full of confidence in the afternoon training. End of this chapter. Chapter 12 Bede's Training Course. Aunt May made lunch, of course. Considering that Spider-Ham is a pig, the lunch did not use any pork ingredients, but all beef instead. Aunt May's culinary skills are very good, and Spider Pigman showed off 3 hot dogs stuffed with oversized beef strips in one breath, which was very enjoyable. During the meal, Penny also talked about her progress. The good news is that she found a plan in the files left by the late Spider-Man. The scheme is set for Jinbin's particle collider. He seemed to be working on something to completely destroy Kingpin's particle collider. But I don't know why, there is no specific information about the particle collider, only a design drawing is left, and the rest seems to be deleted artificially. They speculated that it might be that after the late Spider-Man finished researching Jinbin's particle collider and produced a corresponding destruction device, he destroyed all the data for safety reasons, so as to prevent others from obtaining the data. Then make a new collider. The starting point is good. But the late Spider-Man himself did not expect that he would die in this incident. And after destroying most of the materials, if there is only one blueprint left, even Penny will have a hard time figuring out how to make the destructive device in a short time. In the end, Penny said helplessly, "I'll try again in the afternoon. If it still doesn't work, then I can only find a way to sneak into that guy named Jinbin's territory at night, and get another copy of the particle collider's detailed information." Well, just right, it can also be used as Bede's first battle, Shadow Spider nodded, but it made no sense to Penny's suggestion. Pedro was also secretly a little excited. The morning's intensive training made his strength surge. He was already a little eager to try. Just considering that they still had to find a way to fulfill the legacy of the late Spider-Man in this world and find a way to return home, they didn't dare to go out. After all, judging from the situation last night, Jinbin must have been spying on Aunt May. Now they are in the dark, and the gold is in the light, which can make their next actions have a higher success rate. And once it is exposed, if Jinbin is prepared, it may only increase the number of accidents. Not worth the candle. Therefore, B can only forcefully suppress his excitement. But if it is a team activity that everyone agrees on, then you don't have to worry so much. Thinking about it, B couldn't wait to have a big fight. After eating, Pete took Shadow Spider and Spider-Ham to the training ground in the underground spider cave again. The original Spider-Man must also like to test some new abilities here, or exercise himself and the like. After a little manipulation on the wall, there are many more things in the training ground. There are obstacles hanging in all directions, and laser devices suddenly protruding from the walls. It can be used not only to exercise the flexibility of the body, but also to exercise the ability to respond. Although it has spider sense, the dodge of long-range damage is basically maxed out. But there is a very simple saying that goes well: the brain reacts, but the body does not. The same goes for spider sensing. If the body's reaction speed cannot keep up with the spider's induction, there is still the possibility of being injured. In addition, there are some times when the spider sense does not trigger. For example, Garfield spiders were shot because they let down their guard. But in fact, even if he relaxed his vigilance because he was reassured by the police, the spider sense was not triggered at first, but when the bullet was about to hit him, the spider sense should have sensed the danger. If you react quickly enough at that time, you will still be able to dodge. This reflects the importance of training the body's reaction speed. However, the existence of such facilities in the base also shows how hard the late Spider-Man worked during his lifetime. Swinging flying kick. Spider web slam. Aerial combo. Throwing in the air. Stick to the wall and bend. Ceiling suspension. First, Shadow Spider and Spider-Ham were taught separately, and then, after spending an hour doing all the skills they taught, Pedro reproduced many skills one by one according to the appearance in the game in his memory. Out. Wow, boy, it seems that your fighting talent is very good. Spider Pigman praised. The shadow spider crossed her hands in front of her chest, and said, Boy, that action just now was a little too exaggerated, you can be more decisive, don't swing your arms straight, but follow the direction in which the spider web swings. Have you studied geometry? The direction of your arm waving and the spider silk present a straight line, so that you can achieve twice the result with half the effort. What are you doing with that leg? Are you doing Latin dance? This move is too fancy and impractical. Are you planning to be thrown into the mud by the enemy in battle? The shadow spider pointed at Bede's movements, and his mouth was merciless, like an instructor during military training. However, under his strict guidance, Bede's progress has been much faster. After removing some of the dazzling effects in the game, he quickly mastered the combat skills of coordinating attacks with spider silk. Not just attacking, but also dodging, trapping enemies, lurking and so on. B is like a sponge, while Shadow Spider and Spider Ham are two jugs. The latter keeps pouring its water outwards, while the former refuses no one who comes and keeps absorbing water. This allowed Bede's combat ability to continue to rise. It is undoubtedly Bede's luck to be able to receive the careful teaching of two senior Spidermen when he first acquired his abilities. Think of Toby Spider and Garfield Spider, they are crossing the river by feeling the stones, relying on their own groping bit by bit, learning and verifying bit by bit, fighting villains one by one, and even facing danger. Finally they can slowly grow up. Bede, on the other hand, skipped these initial stages. There are pros and cons to this. The advantage is naturally that his starting point will be very high. Relying on the super memory and physical fitness endowed to him by the spider ability, he has almost absorbed all the experience of the two shadow spiders, which makes his combat effectiveness very high. But the disadvantages are also obvious. He is now like a flower cultivated in a greenhouse. Although the color is bright, it also looks healthy. But no one knows how it will behave when it comes outside the greenhouse and sees the real wind and rain. And this kind of xing problem, no one can help Bede, he can only adapt to it through real battles. But no matter what, he is grateful for the teachings of Shadow Spider and Spider Ham. While Bede was exercising himself, 3 uninvited guests also arrived in front of Aunt May's house on the ground. A little black boy in a cheap spider t-shirt. A middle-aged man wearing a spider suit on the upper body, long johns on the lower body, and a big belly in the middle. And a slender girl in a black and white spider suit. Thanks to Brother Tao who opened a shop to sell rice cakes, Joket the Annihilator, Hunyuan Shangqing Wuji Tianzun, and book friends 202002252238389117 for their rewards. Thank you for your support. End of this chapter. Chapter 13. My name is Gwen Stacy. Wow, guys, I really didn't expect that there would be so many companions. Spider-Ham yelled, bouncing buji on the ground. Spider Pigman walked all the way to the front of the 3 of them, and stretched out his wet hand. Oh! I'm sorry, I just washed my hands, so they are wet. If you mind, I can also wipe them off. Spider-Man in long johns bent down, stretched out his hand and shook it. Of course I don't mind, it's nice to meet you. But, can you tell me what's going on? Well, let's introduce myself again. Pedro suggested. The shadow spider put his hands in his pockets. Okay, then start with me. Afterwards, several people introduced themselves again. Then it was the turn of the new 3. Hello, everyone. My name is Peter Parker. I'm a sunny, cheerful, and lively middle-aged uncle. Spider-Man in long johns, the middle-aged Peter Spider proudly said with his big belly straightened out. Next to him, the big black boy introduced himself shyly. Hi, everyone, my name is Miles Morales, you can just call me Miles. 2 people, one big and one small, stood in front of Bede and the others. But Bede's gaze mainly stayed on the girl behind them in the black and white spider suit. The other party's attire made him think of a person. But he wasn't so sure. Seemingly noticing Bede's gaze, the middle-aged Peter Spider waved over there. "Hey, girl, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone first?" The girl turned around, her soft blonde hair was thrown behind her shoulders, revealing a delicate quiz. "Well, hello everyone, my name is Gwen Stacy." "Gwen? It really is Gwen?" Peter suddenly realized. The reason why he knew the existence of Gwen Spider was because he once saw a video made by a netizen on the internet. After going back to her world, she didn't return to her own world, but accidentally went to Gwen Spider's world, and met Gwen Stacy, who became the Spider-Man in her world. At first, he thought it was a brain-opening work, but from the comments of netizens, he knew that among the many Spider-Man, there is indeed a Gwen Spider. Thinking of this, Pete looked at Gwen Spider with a slightly hot expression. "Gwen Stacy, how many people are the white moonlight when watching Spider-Man?" However, B soon shook his head and put some thoughts behind him. This Gwen is not Big Gwen. Moreover, looking at Gwen Spider's appearance, it seems a bit cold, and it doesn't seem like they want to talk too much with them. Only then did Bede turn his gaze back to Miles. "Wait, you said your name was Miles?" "Miles Morales." Miles looked at B and nodded. What's the matter?" Bede asked, "Did you have an uncle named Alan Davis?" "You know my uncle?" Miles asked in surprise. "Then do you have two childhood sweethearts, Feeny and Lee Mason?" Bede asked. Miles became more and more surprised. "You actually know Feeny and Lee Mason? Did we meet when we were young?" Bede smiled slightly and shook his head. "I haven't met." "By the way, you are from this world, right?" "Yes," Miles nodded, wondering, "What's wrong?" Bede said, "It's nothing, I'm just confirming something, and now it's finally confirmed." "What are you sure about?" the Shadow Spider asked in confusion. Even Gwen Spider, who had been silently isolating herself from the crowd, cast a curious look at Pete. B opened his mouth to tell what he had found. He has played several Spider-Man-related games, one of which is called Marvel Spider-Man, Miles Morales. The main content of the game is, a black guy named Miles was bitten by a mutant spider by chance, so he gained the ability similar to Spider-Man. Then, Spider-Man took Mary Jane on an overseas trip, and Miles became the only Spider-Man in New York. That is, the character controlled by the player. Miles then fought the underground gang led by his childhood friend Feeny while receiving training from the course left by Spider-Man. By the way, he also found out that his uncle Aaron Davis is actually a prowler. In the end, go to the Osborn group and fall in love with Feeny, who is a tinkerer again. After defeating Feeny, in order to prevent the new state gold from exploding, Miles used his ability to absorb the energy in the new state gold. Then, Feeny sent Miles aloft. The energy inside Miles exploded, killing Feeny. "Wait." Miles stared at Pete with wide eyes. "Are you kidding? How could Uncle Alan be a prowler? And Feeny, I haven't seen her for 5 or 6 years, how could she become a gang leader? And, in your world, there will be a game with me as the main character?" Miles had a real black question mark on his face. Bede frowned. "There are indeed some discrepancies. According to the information we have collected, the current leader of the New York underground gang should still be Jin Bin, not a tinkerer." And as he said that, Bede subconsciously glanced at Aunt May on the other side. The Shadow Spider and the others immediately understood what he didn't say. And the Spider-Man in the game he mentioned is not dead, but the Spider-Man in this world is already dead. B hesitated for a moment, his mind turned quickly, and then suddenly realized. This Miles in front of him should be another one. Because the game he played was produced by Sony, and the plot was somewhat different from the original version. The one in front of him may be the one from the original version. That is, the difference between Miles and PS4 Miles. similar to a parallel space-time isotope. And if it's the original Miles, then he knows the identity of the world and the dead Spider-Man. Earth 1610. Marvel Ultimate Universe. And the Spider-Man who died is the Ultimate Spider-Man. As for why he knew this, it was because after he played the game and found out that this Spider-Man was actually a black man, he searched for relevant information on Miles out of curiosity. The ability of this little black spider is different from that of most Spider-Man. He has a very unique bioelectric attack ability. After being blessed with bioelectricity, his attack power can be doubled. At the same time, it also has effects such as armor penetration and paralysis. It's a very good ability. In addition, he also has a unique talent skill, invisibility. This stealth ability can even evade infrared detectors in the game. As the parallel space-time counterpart of PS4 Miles, the one in front of me should be able to do it too, right? End of this chapter. Chapter 14 The Truth. Bede had no intention of hiding anything and told all the information he knew about the little black spider. After all, the little black spider is not only the game character he manipulated, but also one of their helpers to deal with Jin Bing. In terms of emotion and reason, I should help him. And it's just to reveal the information, and there is nothing to lose. On the contrary, several people were stunned after listening to Bede's description. After a long time, the middle-aged Peter Spider elbowed the little black spider's shoulder. "Miles, did you hear that? You are so powerful." The little black spider nodded stupidly. Yes, it turns out that I am so powerful." The Gwen spider on the side looked at the little black spider, then looked at Pete. Is he really invisible? Yes. B is actually a little uncertain. After all he knows is Beidu encyclopedia and games, but now it is reality. The phrase "pictures are for reference only" is not just used on instant noodle buckets. At this moment, the middle-aged Peter Spider grabbed the little black spider's shoulders and said, "I can prove this. He can really be invisible." The little black spider nodded ignorantly. Yes, I can really be invisible." The middle-aged Peter Spider urged, "Quickly hide and show them." "Okay. Then I'll hide you." The little black spider seemed to be infected by the middle-aged Peter Spider's emotions, and was filled with pride for a moment. I saw him stretching out his hands, spreading his feet, doing a squatting stance. It looked a bit like the tragedy tower was accumulating energy to become a super scion. The little black spider growled while making movements. "Well, it's more like this time." Bede was a little speechless and wanted to complain, but he was afraid of interrupting the little black spider's passion, so he had to watch silently. After a while, the little black spider lowered his head dejectedly. "I can't hide just yet." His voice was a little hoarse, which should be the after effect of the excessive force just now. Bede thoughtfully handed him a glass of water. "Well, I think it's better to take a rest first, and tell you your story by the way. I didn't have time to tell you just now." "Thank you." The little black spider took the cup and drank it down. Then, starting with him, the three talked about their experiences in turn. Little Black Spider is 17 years old and is a senior at Vision Middle School in New York City. A slight adjustment here. In the original book, he and Gwen were both set to be 15 years old. For some reason, they both added 2 years old and changed them to 17 years old. Last weekend, he went to play with his uncle Aaron, and accidentally got bitten by a spider. When he woke up the next day, he found that he had gained spider powers. After staying at school for a few days, he couldn't hold back his inner doubts, so he followed his memory and came to the subway track where he was bitten by a spider. But instead of finding the spider that bit him, he accidentally bumped into the Ultimate Spider and the Green Devil in a fierce battle, as well as the particle collider that was turned on. During the fierce battle, none of the Ultimate Spiders were checked, and was pushed into the particle stream ejected by the particle collider by the Green Goblin. At this time, the collider exploded violently, the Green Goblin was killed on the spot, and the ultimate spider was also seriously injured. After that, he was brutally killed by Jinbing. The little black spider who was secretly observing accidentally exposed his traces and was chased by the prowler. After he escaped by chance, he learned about the death of the ultimate spider. Not long after, he met the middle-aged Peter Spider who had time traveled. But they didn't know each other's identity at first, and there were some conflicts. After resolving the misunderstanding, the two met and went to Jinbing's research institute in the southern suburbs, where they stole a computer containing the data of the particle collider. Later, they were chased by Kingpin's men and encountered Gwen Spider on the way. With the help of Gwen Spider, they successfully got rid of the pursuers and came here. Is this the computer you brought back? Great! With the information in it, I can research ways to deal with the particle collider faster. Penny came up. Beside her, the spider mech followed step by step. Yes, the middle-aged Peter Spider looked at Penny. I'm sorry, are you serious about finding a way to deal with that collider? Bede smiled and said, of course it's true, Penny is a talented girl. Penny raised her head and straightened her fair-skinned little Kyung's nose. Ahaha, she is a beautiful genius girl. Okay, you're welcome, genius beautiful girl. The middle-aged Peter Spider shrugged, looking unconvinced. But this is normal. Anyone would think that a 14-year-old girl and high technology like a particle collider are not compatible. A normal 14-year-old child is still in junior high school and probably has only learned a few linear equations in 2 variables. Particle collider? What is that? Let alone a normal 14-year-old child, even a social animal like Bede who has graduated from college has black eyes. Penny didn't think it was disobedient either, she saw a lot of similar eyes. This is the trouble of a genius, she said she was used to it. Behind her, the spider mecha helped her carry the case. I'll crack it first and take out the information inside. Penny couldn't wait to come to a computer and started to get busy. Bede patted the middle-aged Peter Spider and little black spider on the face of the subway man. Calm down, this is the world of geniuses, we mortals don't have to worry about it. Middle-aged Peter Spider, I thank you for comforting me so much. Little black spider, you are really good at comforting people. That's right. The little black spider suddenly called out, took out a USB flash drive from its body, walked to Penny's side, and put it on the table. Penny picked it up, wondering, what is this? The little black spider said, this is a gadget. Peter gave it to me. He said that it can completely shut down the particle collider. Penny's eyes lit up, that's great. Shadow Spider asked in confusion, why didn't you tell me about this good thing earlier? The little black spider scratched his head, well, actually it was damaged. What? Broke in. Wang Defa. Shadow Spider, Spider Pigman and Bede shouted. The little black spider lowered his head. Penny waved her hand, I'll fix it if it's broken. It's much easier than making another one, Miles, you've done a good job. The little black spider was even more embarrassed, because he accidentally broke it. Gwen Spider came near them at some point and asked, do you have any plans? Spider-Ham said, the plan is simple, make a gadget, find a particle collider, insert the gadget, and destroy it. Then how do we return to our world? Shadow Spider asked. Everyone fell silent. Suddenly, screams sounded in the spider cave. Except for Peta and the little black spider, colorful distortions appeared on the bodies of the others present. This feeling, as if the world is rejecting them. End of this chapter. Chapter 15 The Purpose of Merger. After a while, everyone recovered. Bede helped up the Shadow Spider, Gwen Spider, and Spider-Ham who were closer to him in turn, and on the other side, the little black spider also helped up Penny and the middle-aged Peter Spider. Bede said with a serious expression, this is the second time. It seems that this is not something that can be explained simply by acclimatization. Penny nodded, I have learned about quantum physics. In our current situation, the explanation from the perspective of quantum physics is that we are composed of quanta in our own world, and these quanta should not be existing in this world. Therefore, this world will instinctively reject us outsiders. The shadow spider panted heavily, and said in a low voice, "Then what will happen to us?" "I will die." Penny said firmly, "As we stay in this world longer, the force of this squeeze will become stronger and stronger until it annihilates us." "Ah, what should we do then?" Spider Pigman's face changed. Although he is not a person who is greedy for life and afraid of death, this is not the way he wants to die. On the side, the middle-aged Peter Spider put one hand on the shoulder of the little black spider, and said, "As long as we find a way to return to our world, we can avoid this from happening, right?" The little black spider asked worriedly, "But how did you go back? We don't even know how you got here." "No, we already know it," Penny shook her head and said, "It's Kingpin's particle collider." Bede also nodded. The logic in his mind is quite clear now. I guess it has something to do with the particle collider. After all, we all appeared in this world after the particle collider conducted experiments. Penny said, "No, the main reason is that I have already found the evidence." As she spoke, she pointed to the computer screen in front of her, which displayed densely packed information. Bede and a few others leaned over to take a look. As they watched, Penny explained in case they didn't understand. This particle collider consists of a 30-kilometer-long ring of superconducting magnets and thousands of magnets of different types and models. For example, the 1232 bipolar magnets used to confine the curved particle beam are 15 meters long. And the 392 quadrupole magnets used to concentrate the particle flow are also 5 to 7 meters long. To this end, Jin took advantage of his power to take down several abandoned subway stations in Brooklyn and opened them up to house this huge installation. And in this computer, there is also a plan document. After combining the clues left by the ultimate spider, they finally integrated the ins and outs of the matter. They finally knew what Jin had used a lot of manpower and material resources to build this huge machine. It turned out that Jin Bin of this world was accidentally bumped into by his wife and son when he was fighting the ultimate spider. His wife and son always thought he was a successful entrepreneur and philanthropist, and that was the first time they discovered his true colors. Unable to accept all this, Jin Bing and his wife took their son and left home as if fleeing, but because of panic, they encountered a car accident on the way and died on the spot. After losing his wife, Kim was not very upset. So, he found a mad scientist in the field of quantum physics, Ms. Octopus Olivia Liv Octavius, who is the female version of Dr. Octopus in this world. Jin Bing contributed money, Ms. Octopus contributed, and the two worked together to build this particle collider. Jin Bin's purpose is to use this machine to open the quantum channel of the parallel universe, find the parallel space-time counterparts of the two wives from other worlds, and bring them to this world. The accident happened in the fight between the ultimate spider and the Green Goblin. As the little black spider said, the ultimate spider was accidentally caught by the Green Goblin during the battle and stuffed into the particle stream ejected by the particle collider. And this particle collider needs to find the parallel space-time isotope, it needs to put the gene sample of the target into it, and use it as a search condition for automatic search. The genetic samples of Jin Bing's wife and son were supposed to be put in, but they were put in the samples of Spider-Man, so they brought over Spider-Man from parallel time and space. However, it can also be seen from this that Jin Bin's particle collider should have great flaws. Gene sample retrieval method obviously not reliable, otherwise, the Spider-Man brought here, let alone the genetic match between them and the ultimate spider, there are males and females, old and young. Few, some white and some yellow. Is this span too big? This thing can successfully open the quantum channel of the parallel universe, it can only be said that a blind cat has encountered a dead mouse. And they are all victims. Spider-Ham rolled his eyes, and his nose arched. Emotionally, we were all accidentally involved in this accident. Can I ask Jin and ask if he will provide after-sales service? The shadow spider thought about it seriously. He should provide after-sales service, such as arresting you and taking slices to study the differences between things in the parallel universe and this universe. The middle-aged Peter Spider suddenly trembled all over. What's wrong with you? PETA asked. The middle-aged Peter Spider showed a blunt smile. No, nothing. Will he tell them that he and Miles went to Jin Bin's laboratory to steal information not long ago, but they were almost caught and sliced by Ms. Octopus? Everyone continued to look at the information while listening to Penny's explanation. At this moment, PETA suddenly felt a bunch of eyes stay on him. That angle belongs to Gwen Spider. At first, he thought it was just an illusion, but in fact Gwen Spider was looking at the computer screen, but it just happened to be in that position. But now, he discovered that this should not be an illusion. Gwen Spider was really watching him the whole time. Just why? He was not so narcissistic that he felt that Gwen Spider fell in love with him at first sight. Although there is a special connection between spiders, such as between Peter Parker and Spider Silk Cindy, once the distance is too close, a certain hormone will be automatically secreted, making them difficult to control themselves. But he's sure there's no such strange hormonal connection between him and the Gwen Spider. However, when he turned his head, he immediately saw the face of Gwen Spider. You, what's the matter? PETA touched his face, as if there was nothing on it. Gwen Spider frowned, looked at Pete carefully, and said, I've been thinking about it just now. Why didn't you have this phenomenon like ours? Don't you also come from another world? PETA was stunned for a moment, and then he came to his senses. Yup. He is also from another world, but why didn't he show rejection? He and the Shadow Spider came to this world at the same time. The Shadow Spider had 2 rejection reactions, but he didn't even once. This is so weird too. End of this chapter. Chapter 16 You are Karami too. Spider Pigman walked around Bede and said, but you are not different from us in any way, are you? Bede complained, no, I may not be the same as them, but I must be very different from you. Spider Ham. He suddenly jumped up, jumped on Bede's shoulders, and touched his cheek with his nose. What do you mean? You mean I am a pig? Aren't you? The Shadow Spider spread its hands aside. Spider Ham. The smile on his face gradually disappeared, and his hands loosened, sliding down PETA's hand. Bee quickly caught him. But Spider Pigman didn't react at all, and his 2 antenna-like pig ears drooped. Oh my god, do you know how much damage this will cause to a cute humanoid spider? I beg you, please stop playing tricks. Penny couldn't bear it anymore. She looked at Bede with burning eyes. If you think about it carefully, you seem to be really different from us. There is actually Miles' game in your world. Bede nodded honestly. Yes, there are not only Miles games, but also Spider-Man themed PS4 games, series of movies, anime, and it is said that there are also comics. Shadow Spider. Penny Parker. Spider Mecha, Omega. Middle-aged Peter Spider. Little Black Spider. Gwen Spider. Spider Pigman, looking left and right, am I being unsociable if I'm not shocked? Then I'll be one too. What's going on in your world? It sounds very special. Gwen Spider was surprised, with a curious light flashing in his eyes. Or, in your world, there are people who can travel through time and space, and have been to other worlds to do time and space. Travel, so you can know about other worlds. Judging from the tone of her words, it seems that she is very interested in time travel. But Bee didn't notice this, and just told them what he knew. For example, the Spider-Man trilogy of the original Toby Spider, the Amazing Spider-Man biology of the second generation Andrew Spider, and the Return of Heroes, Back to School season, of the third generation Dutch Spider. The Far From Home and No Return trilogy, as well as the games of Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and the animated version released in 1994 Spider-Man. These are all things that he knows better. In addition, there are also some hearsay news through netizens' comments and the like. What Spider-Man and Spider-Silk, what Spider-Man and Black Cat and so on. This is so shocking. The middle-aged Peter Spider was the first to digest the information and said, "The story about Toby Spider you told is quite similar to mine, but it was more than 10 years ago. There are indeed many problems between Mary Jane and I. We haven't seen each other for a long time, and I don't know how she is now." As he spoke, there was a hint of memory in his eyes. His gaze drifted involuntarily to the table on the other side. There was a photo frame on the table. Inside was a picture of Mary Jane. That was the Mary Jane of this world, the wife of the ultimate spider, but she looked exactly the same as his Mary Jane. This is probably the same as the only difference between him and Spider-Man in this world is the color of his hair. Parallel universes are indeed amazing. The Shadow Spider suddenly realized. No wonder you called me Shadow Spider-Man when we first met, and you also said that some Spider-Mans have barbs on their hands. Bede smiled, thinking about the way he was startled when he first met the Shadow Spider last night. It was indeed a bit funny. The little black spider leaned forward, looking forward to it. "Then can you help me train my abilities?" Bede said helplessly, "Although I have played games, it doesn't mean I really know how to do it. The understanding of your abilities is what I told you before. You can try to develop in those directions." The little black spider nodded with some disappointment. "Okay, I understand, but thank you anyway, it's better to have a direction than aimless." He looked at the middle-aged Peter Spider again. The middle-aged Peter Spider hesitated for a moment and said, "Although I really want to help you, Miles, there may not be enough time. The top priority is to go home, otherwise we will all die." Little Black Spider was disappointed again, but he also knew the priorities of the matter. Penny stretched out her hand and shook the gadget in her hand. "Big guy, there is some good news now." "What good news?" Penny said, "The real name of this gadget is actually the reload key. It can format the particle collider and restore everything to its original state." "And then?" Spider-Ham asked suspiciously. Penny rolled her eyes at him. "Then we can go home." "So this is our ticket home?" Bede suddenly realized. Unexpectedly, the ticket home was always with them. Shadow Spider said, "This is good news. Now I recognize your title of Genius Girl. Then, the next plan is, the Genius Girl repairs this reload key and gives it to me." "Wait, why did I give it to you?" Peter cut him off. Shadow Spider glanced at him. "Because I promised Aunt May that I would help Peter in this world destroy Kingpin's collider." Bede shook his head again and again. "No, you didn't agree to that alone, leave it to me to do it." Spider Pigman on the side was about to say something. Bede glanced at him, then turned to look at Penny, and said, "You can't do it either, and Penny, you can't do it either." Among all the people present, except me and Miles, there was a rejection reaction, so, in the next operation, you should all enter the particle collider. As for the task of shutting down and destroying it, I will give it to you, give it to me." The little black spider said, "Why only you, what about me?" Bede looked at him and shook his head slightly. "Miles, I have understood your situation. Although I recognize your potential has not been realized yet. You, like this, rashly join this game. Fighting is too dangerous." The little black spider shouted, "But didn't you say that you just activated your ability?" "I've had my ability for several days, and I'm not much stronger than you." Bede shrugged, "But I have just received the rigorous training from the two of them, and I can still be regarded as a little combat power at present." Spider Pigman nodded, "I can testify to this. Bede is basically a qualified warrior now." The Shadow Spider shook her head slightly and said, "It's too early to say I'm qualified." "Hey!" Peter looked at him in surprise. He didn't expect the Shadow Spider to tear him down. Shadow Spider said, "If you have not experienced actual combat, How can you be considered a qualified warrior? When the little black spider heard this, he felt a little gloating. Haha, I told you to look down on me, I never thought that I was also a Karami. End of this chapter. Chapter 17 Practical Assessment. At this time, Gwen Spider, who had been standing aside and listening silently, interjected, since this is the case, wouldn't it be good to test it in actual combat? Practice test? How to do it? Gwen Spider pointed to the top of his head, he will do what we usually do. You mean, let him go to the street, deal with some emergencies, and practice his skills? Shadow Spider said. This is the best way to check, isn't everyone here like this? Gwen Spider said. Well, what you said makes sense, but we shouldn't have time to do this, right? Shadow Spider frowned, but he still insisted that it would be safer for him to stay. Of course, it wasn't that he couldn't think about committing suicide. It's just that someone has to do it. Penny said, there is still time. Since we want to destroy the collider, I am going to add something to the gadgets. Add something? What? Spider-Ham asked curiously. Penny explained, when the particle collider is turned on, two beams of high-energy particle streams will appear in the accelerator, respectively passing through different beam tubes, and propagating in opposite directions at a speed close to the speed of light. Under the action of the peripheral strong magnetic field, the two streams the beam of high-energy particles will be confined in this acceleration ring, accelerated step by step, and finally successfully complete the collision. To accelerate two beams of high-energy particle streams to close to the speed of light, the required conditions are very harsh. First, the environment inside the beam tube needs to reach an ultra-vacuum state, and the material in it should be reduced as much as possible to reduce the loss of particles during motion as much as possible. Secondly, the strong magnetic field used to confine the particle flow also requires a large number of superconducting electromagnets to obtain, and to make the electromagnet enter the superconducting state, the magnet needs to be cooled to -271 degrees Celsius. So they need a very large and advanced cooling device to cool it down, which is this liquid helium split system. Penny spoke with great interest, but the others were dizzy when they heard it. Are you begging for nothing? The Shadow Spider couldn't help but said, okay, beautiful genius girl, why don't you just tell us what you are going to do and how long it will take? Oh, Penny sighed, as if she was lamenting the natural generation gap between the scumbag and the top student, but she sorted out the language and said, I plan to add another Trojan virus, used to invade and destroy the liquid helium shunt system. At that time, the superconducting electromagnet cannot be cooled, and the accumulated heat will become a bomb, and then boom! You can destroy the collider with one click. It will probably take me a day to make this thing. The middle-aged Peter Spider stretched out 2 fingers, so there are actually 2 points. First, you need to make a full-style detonator so that Bede can use it more worry-free. Second, we have half a day to train and prove your strength. You're right, Penny pouted her little mouth like a cute inflatable fish. Bede resisted the urge to stretch out his hand to Rua, and said, in other words, until tomorrow afternoon, I can use it to prove my strength, right? Yes, Penny nodded, and then said, don't worry, everyone, I just calculated that according to the degree of rejection, our bodies can last at least 2 weeks. Go back within a week, otherwise it may cause some bad effects on the body. Everyone nodded their heads to express their understanding. Gwen Spider frowned slightly, and his face was a little uncomfortable, but he didn't say anything. No one else noticed what was wrong with her. The little black spider excitedly said, so, I can also receive training. Please, but don't bother me, I have to concentrate on making gadgets. Penny's face was tight, very serious, probably still angry at the behavior of these scumbags. To prevent rejection the body has a bad effect, and the sooner we go back, the better. Well, let's set the action tomorrow night, the Shadow Spider said, we will gather here tomorrow afternoon. The middle-aged Peter Spider hugged the little black spider's shoulders. So, Miles, are you ready for special training? Really? The little black spider's eyes lit up. Of course, said the middle-aged Peter. Spider Pigman jumped off Bede's hand and said, if you don't mind, I can help too. The shadow spider looked between the little black spider and Pede, as if hesitating for something. Just as she was about to speak, Gwen Spider said, then, let me supervise Bede's actual combat training assessment. The shadow spider breathed a sigh of relief. That's really troublesome for you. To be honest, I don't like going out during the day, especially in this colorful world. Pede gave Gwen Spider a strange look. He always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't tell. However, although the plan has been made, it is already late at night, and there is no rush for this moment. And so came the next morning. Spider-Man is all about action. Now that the plan is made, it is natural to start acting on their own. After having breakfast, Penny and her spider mech stay in the underground spider cave to make enhanced gadgets. Middle-aged Peter Spider, Spider Pigman, and Shadow Spider train Little Black Spider in the training ground in the underground spider cave. And Pede put on his spider suit, left Aunt May's house with Gwen Spider, and headed for the bustling urban area. Although Queens Hill is also within the scope of New York City, it is still a little far away from the busiest city center. So they plan to go to the nearby subway station first and take the subway there. Along the way, Peter would glance at Gwen Spider from time to time, and until now, he was still a little confused about what Gwen Spider wanted to do. Although he does eat the face of the Gwen Spider Gwen, who doesn't love it? But his skin is not thick enough to strike up a conversation if he likes it. Nor would he be so narcissistic as to think that Gwen Spider took the initiative to create such an opportunity for the two of them to be alone because they liked him. Yes, judging from everything before, Gwen Spider took the initiative to create the opportunity for the two of them to be alone now. It is estimated that even if Shadow Spider didn't say anything at that time, she would try to get him away. Just, why? Peter was puzzled. He thought Gwen Spider would tell him when he came out. However, until the two found the subway station, entered the station, and found a seat to sit down, Gwen Spider still didn't say a word. So Bede couldn't bear it anymore. He first looked around. It's not the time to commute to get off work, and there are not too many people on the subway. The two closest to them were about 7 or 8 meters away from them. Well, Gwen, can I call you that? Do you have something to tell me? Bede asked straightforwardly. He always felt that there was a touch of worry in Gwen Spider, which was very different from the lively and cheerful girl in his impression. There is a story. However, in the face of Bede's inquiry, Gwen Spider was still hesitant to speak. Seeing this, Bede had no choice but to shrug his shoulders helplessly. Just like that, in the strange silence, the two sat on the same chair, about half a meter apart, and walked all the way to the city. End of this chapter. Chapter 18. A World for Two with Gwen. There is a beautiful woman beside her, but she doesn't want to talk to him, she just wants to be quiet, and she doesn't tell him who Jing Jing is. Bede, who was bored, was quickly attracted by the picture on the LCD screen opposite. The person on the screen was Mary Jane, whom he and Shadow Spider had met from afar when they arrived near Aunt May's house the night before. This should be the picture from her interview yesterday. Mary Jane still had a faint sadness on her face, obviously not recovering from the shadow of losing Peter. Still looking tired. According to Aunt May, ever since the Ultimate Spider's identity was revealed and news of his death spread, Mary Jane has been stalked by various people. Some fans of Ultimate Spider came to express their concern and greetings, and some villains that Ultimate Spider dealt with tried to retaliate. Fortunately, the New York police arranged for someone to protect her, which avoided a lot of trouble. And more are media reporters from various TV stations, newspapers, etc. After all, in the past 2 days, Spider-Man's death is the traffic code. In fact, even Aunt May's house often gathers a lot of people, which is why the shadow spider and the others have been staying in the underground spider cave. Even Bede and Gwen Spider could sneak out quietly early in the morning when no one was around. In fact, if Mary Jane hadn't attracted most of the firepower, the number of people on Aunt May's side would probably have doubled. At this time, Mary Jane's voice sounded in the picture. "My husband, Peter Parker. He used to be a normal guy. He always said that anyone can be the man behind the mask. He just happened to be bitten by a spider. That's not what he meant. But he chose to be Spider-Man. What I love most about Peter is that he empowers us all. Each of us has our own power. We're Spider-Man in our own way. We need you." For some reason, when he heard these few words, Bede's heart was touched a little. Unconsciously, he thought of the line that often appeared with Spider-Man. "The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility." This is what Uncle Ben, as an elder, taught the younger generation he cared about before he died. Before traveling through time, he had seen many people's self-righteous so-called understanding of this sentence. Some people say that this is actually the greater the power, the greater the responsibility, but is this Uncle Ben's character design? Is this what an elder should say to a younger generation? If that were the case, Uncle Ben wouldn't be Uncle Ben, and Peter Parker wouldn't be the Spider-Man that so many people love. Without contacting the context, out of the context, and making wild guesses, you are playing hooligans. Of course, Bede doesn't have Uncle Ben, and the education he received since he was a child is very different from that of Spider-Man. But this does not prevent him from pursuing the meaning behind ability. Is it because of the ability to become what kind of person, or is it because of what kind of person you want to be that you study hard and improve yourself? Anyone can be the person behind the mask. Peter repeated in a low voice, feeling as if he had found the direction of his efforts. Whether to become a spider monster whose power loses his heart, or a Spider-Man who uses his heart to drive his power. The choice is in his hands. He doesn't have Uncle Ben, but the ultimate spider may be his Uncle Ben, guiding him to tame his own power, so as not to go astray. Anyone can be the man behind the mask. At this time, another murmur came from his ears, breaking Bede's thoughts. It's the voice of Gwen Spider. Bede turned his head sideways in surprise. This was the first sentence Gwen Spider said after sitting here for so long. "Do you know, actually, I also know a Peter. He and I are childhood sweethearts. We grew up together. I have a relatively withdrawn personality, and he is my best and only friend. But I didn't know him well enough. I just kept immersed in my own world until everything was irreversible." Gwen Spider's voice was very low, and the sadness revealed in his tone made people feel distressed. In fact, after hearing this, Bede probably knew what was going on. Just like Garfield lost his Gwen in The Amazing Spider-Man, Gwen apparently lost her Peter. Sure enough, what Gwen Spider said next proved Bede's guess. In the world of Gwen Spider, it was Gwen who was bitten by the spider and gained the ability to mutate, and Peter Parker continued to be his ordinary little transparent because of this. Sometimes he was bullied by Ned and asked Gwen Spider to help him out. The original intention of Gwen Spider is to protect her good friend from being bullied by others. But sometimes this kind of kindness can also turn into a psychological burden. Peter Parker was not reconciled to his mediocrity, and he was not reconciled to being protected by Gwen all the time. So he researched a kind of biological medicine, the mutated lizard potion. After drinking the mutated lizard potion, his body underwent a huge mutation, which even affected his sanity. He turned into a monster. A huge lizard. Lizard Peter. The Lizard Peter, who has lost his sanity, has only revenge in his mind. So he broke into the reunion of his classmates, grabbed Ned who often bullied him, and prepared to revenge. Gwen Spider stopped him just in time. But at that time, she didn't know that the big lizard in front of her was her best friend. After a hard fight, she defeated Peter the Lizard. At this time, the mutant lizard potion expired, revealing Peter's figure. Peter's frail body was completely destroyed by the mutated lizard potion, and finally died in her arms. From then on, she stopped trying to make friends and became a loner completely. Hearing this, Bee suddenly realized. It's no wonder that from the moment she saw the Gwen spider, she acted like no one should enter. I thought it was cold, but it turned out to be a psychological shadow, so I closed myself. Peter stretched out his hand and placed it in front of Gwen spider. Gwen spider regained consciousness from the memory, turned to look at him with surprise in his eyes. Neither of them are wearing masks now, purely showing their true colors. They are not from this world anyway, so there is nothing to hide. As for why no one came to them, it was because with the death of the Ultimate Spider, there has been an upsurge of cosplaying Spider-Man in many places recently. Especially in New York City, where the Ultimate Spider lives, walking on the street, within 10 steps, you can bump into 3 or 4 people wearing Spider-Man clothes, and the remaining 6 or 7 are either wearing hoods or wearing hoods. With some other peripheral items. Whether they are fans or not, everyone seems to have tacitly brought something related to Spider-Man in the past few days to express their condolences to this superhero who has been silently guarding him. Even in the subway car they were sitting in, there were several similar ones. Before showing the spider ability, others probably thought they were just 2 cosplayers. Facing the gaze cast by Gwen Spider, Bede said seriously, "I'm sorry for what happened to your friend. But we have an old saying in Hangzhou, which is this person has passed away, but the living is like this, which means we will make up for the irreparable regrets of the deceased on the living. The living should live well." When saying that old saying, Bede used Chinese. Gwen Spider was a little dazed, and subconsciously repeated in very poor Chinese, "This person is dead, and the living is like this." A bright smile appeared on Peter's face. "If you don't mind, can I be your friend?" End of this chapter. Chapter 19, The male and female spider combination is here. Have you reached the city yet? As the subway began to slow down and was about to reach the city, the voice of the shadow spider came from the suit's built-in headset. Bee also took his gaze away from Gwen Spider. It is a pity that Gwen Spider did not respond to his active overtures. But Bee can see that she is really thinking about this issue very seriously. So he wasn't in a hurry and let the Gwen Spider take care of himself first. "Shadow, we've arrived," Bede replied. Shadow is the code name of the shadow spider, because there are too many Peters here, so everyone changed the nicknames for several Peters. Shadow Spider is Shadow. The middle-aged Peter Spider is Mr. Parker. Actually, Bede wanted to call him Long Johns, but the middle-aged Peter sternly refused by threatening to eat a delicious hamburger for lunch, which is a pity. Spider Ham is called Ham, because his code name is Spider Ham, and ham means ham, so in fact his real name is Spider Ham, and it doesn't matter if he is called Ham. Well, it was Spider Ham himself who protested. He felt that although he was bitten by a pig and mutated, he was still a humanoid spider in essence. It is a pity that the minority obeys the majority, and the protest is invalid. As for the hunger strike, he was reluctant. If you call a foodie on a hunger strike, you might as well call him Ham. These are the words of Ham, no, Spider Ham. As for Bide, it is still more like Bide, but the tone is more Chinese, that is, Bide, which is different from Peter. Before coming out, the shadow spider said that he would help the middle-aged Peter Spider train miles in the underground spider cave, and at the same time help Bede to find out what happened. Did a case happen? So early? Bede was a little surprised. Shadow Spider complained, "Breakfast? Do people who do bad things give you a share of morning and night?" Well, you're right, so where do I need the help of my good neighbor, Spider-Man?" Bede asked, wearing a battle suit, and after gaining some awareness, he automatically substituted himself into Spider-Man's the role is in. "Well, there was a robbery at a gold store on 16th Street in Flushing. Now the robbers have taken hostages and are blocked in the store by the police. They have been in a standoff for a while. Maybe you can go and help. The shadow spider said. How many people, how many guns, how many hostages are there? Bede asked. Unfortunately, I don't know. The other party didn't show up. They tried to get the police to prepare a car for them so that they could escape successfully. Now the police are discussing whether to storm in or temporarily stabilize them. In short, they are currently in a stalemate. The shadow spider said. Okay, I see. I wonder if these police officers are willing to let a poor cute little spider help. Pete shrugged, and put the spider headgear that he had been holding on his hand all the time on his head. The field of vision immediately became a little narrow. In fact, it is like a person who does not wear glasses suddenly puts on glasses, and there will be a little discomfort. In addition, after the entire face is covered by the mask, breathing will also change slightly. Fortunately, the materials used were breathable enough, and Penny had taken breathability into consideration when she helped him make this suit, and used mask-like materials for the mouth and nose. Not only can it filter out some larger particles of dust to a certain extent, but it also has good air permeability. Of course, there are still some unaccustomed. But he quickly got used to the feeling. Afterwards, he looked at Gwen Spider, who was also carrying a communicator, and they were both on the same communication channel, so she naturally heard the shadow spider's voice. I won't make a move, but once I make a move, it means that your assessment task has failed. Gwen Spider said. Her tone was so flat that it was difficult to distinguish her current emotions. Peter nodded. The subway also slowly stopped at this time. The two stood up at the same time and walked out. When going up the escalator, someone came up to strike up a conversation. A blonde-haired white man asked BD, "Man, the texture of this spider costume on you is very good. It is almost as good as that of Spider-Man. Where did you buy it?" Bede thought for a moment. Gwen Spider beside him said, "Don't waste time, let's go directly." As she spoke, she jumped directly to the ceiling above the escalator and ran up quickly. Bede could only shrug his shoulders when he saw this, and said to the blonde white man, "Tell me, is there a possibility that my suit is not a costume, but a battle suit?" As he spoke, he exerted a little force on his feet, rose up from the ground, and landed on the ceiling with both hands and feet at the same time. But he hasn't reached the level where the Gwen Spider can run backwards at will, so he can only use his hands and feet to cling to keep up. Before leaving, he stretched out a hand and gestured to the young man below. The blonde-white young man couldn't help but say a shocking word he learned from his gaming friends, "Fuck. Spider-Man, it's Spider-Man. Impossible, Spider-Man has passed away. I attended his memorial service yesterday." "Then who was that just now?" "That's really not the original Spider-Man, the voice and shape are different." "Great, is that the new Spider-Man? Did you notice that there was a girl in a spider suit before him? Is the new Spider-Man a team? Similar to a male and female Spider-Man combination." "What kind of crappy name is that? It's better to call them Spider-Hero Couple." "Your name is also inferior, I think it's better to call it." The actions of Gwen Spider and Bede caused an uproar in the subway station. But at this moment, Peeta had already crossed several streets with Gwen and arrived near the destination. Climbing on the wall of a building more than 20 meters high, Bede looked down. On the street not far across, several police cars were parked. 2 cars were blocked on both sides of the street, one on the left and the other on the right, to prevent people who eat melons from breaking in and being accidentally injured, or the gang of robbers inside mixed in to cause chaos. The location of the incident was a shop called Kelkin Store. There had probably been a firefight here before Peeta and Gwen Spider arrived. The glass windows of the Kirkin store facing the street were broken in several places, and deformed bullets were still stuck on them. However, because it is bulletproof glass, the glass window still stands firmly there, separating the inside and outside of the store into 2 worlds. The only thing that was seriously damaged at the scene was the door of the store. The material of the two glass doors at the first end seemed to be unqualified, and most of one side was broken. There were several bullet holes in the two police cars parked obliquely in front of the store as a shelter, and there was still some blood on the ground. Facing this situation for the first time, Bede was stunned. He thought a lot on the way here, and even designed a set of moves on how to appear handsome, but now, he felt like he couldn't start. End of this chapter. Chapter 20 St. Mr. Spider. A soft palm suddenly rested on his shoulder. The warmth from his hands spread to his skin through the thin close-fitting suit. At the same time, Gwen Spider's voice sounded beside her ears, "Don't worry, just do what you can." "Yeah." Pedro nodded. He took a deep breath, leaped without hesitation, and jumped off the tall building. When he was about to reach the ground, he stretched out his right hand and pressed the trigger of the spider silk launcher. A strand of spider silk shot out from the port, and quickly condensed into a solid state. At the same time, he released the trigger and grabbed the spider silk with his backhand. A pendulum was formed between the man and the spider silk, and in this state, his arm was actually the same as the spider silk, and both temporarily became part of the pendulum. Due to the pendulum effect, the actual pulling force that the spider silk needs to withstand is not very large. In the same way, the burden on his arms is much smaller than imagined. This is the insight he has gained from studying with Shadow Spider and Spider-Ham, as well as his own training in the past 2 days. If you just look at the superficial actions, he is no different from the other Spider-Mans. And his actions quickly attracted the attention of some passers-by. During the time when Pete and Gwen Spider came by subway, many people had already appeared on the street. New York City, where people go to work, go to school, and open shops, is worthy of being called one of the 3 major financial centers in the world. There are really many people. "Hey, look, is that Spider-Man?" "No way, it seems like it's really Spider-Man. The suit seems to be different. Is it the new Spider-Man? Mr. Parker's successor?" "Hey! New Mr. Spider, what's your name?" The voices of people greeting him continued to be heard from below. It's a pity that our rookie Mr. Pete doesn't have time to pay attention to all this right now. He was calculating the landing point, and then found that it seemed to be a little bit different from his original estimate. Really, just a little. Boom! A loud bang. Peta fell from the sky and smashed on the door of a police car, knocking the police car sideways a little. A police officer who noticed Bede's arrival through the shouts of the crowd in the distance stopped the hand that was about to say hello to Bede, and the expression on his face froze. "Hiss!" Bede shook his head, nudged the police car in front of him with both hands, and stood up. "I feel like there is an extra horn on my head. Is this considered a horned horn? It seems to be a good one. It's strange that it started, it hurts like hell." The police officer had just finished his mental preparation, and Bede's words were blocked again by Peta's soliloquy. "Always feel that this new Spider-Man doesn't seem very smart?" Officer, do you need some help from a good neighbor?" Peta asked, rubbing his head. "Actually, I want to ask you, does it matter if you want me?" The police officer looked at Bede and replied seriously. "Bede, oh. Then what? To tell you the truth, I told you that it was just a joke, do you believe it?" Peta put his hands down and said solemnly. "What do you think? Hey, I think you should like this kind of humor." Bede felt that he couldn't stay on the topic of his death for too long, so he decided to change the subject. "Officer, what's your name?" "My last name is Orlando, what's yours, Spider Boy?" Officer Orlando said. You can call me Spider-Man, Spider-Man, but don't call me Spider Boy, it sounds small," Bede said. Police Officer Orlando shook his head. "That's not okay. In my heart, Spider-Man is Mr. Parker. So, if we want to deal with each other, I hope we can change the name." When Bede heard it, he suddenly realized that the Orlando police officer in front of him was also a die-hard fan of the Ultimate Spider, and he respected him very much. In this case, he naturally has to make a distinction. What is it called? Spider spirit? An image of a navel spinning silk unconsciously appeared in B's mind. No, no, no. Countless thoughts quickly turned in my mind, and finally, Pedro said, in this case, call me Space-Time Spider-Man, Spider Space-a-Time. Time and space does not mean that Bede has the ability to control time and space. It's because he comes from a special time and space, a real world, different from any known Spider-Man in the Marvel Universe. In fact, he still doesn't understand why he is here. He even had a vague feeling that even if he entered the particle collider like the Shadow Spider and activated the reload key, he might not be able to return to his world. Perhaps this is also the reason why he won't have the same rejection reaction as the Shadow Spider and others. If this is the case, then he is a wanderer in different time and space wandering in Marvel time and space. Therefore, the word time and space not only shows his unique identity, but also expresses his remembrance of his past world. Spider-Man in time and space. Police Officer Orlando repeated, seemingly a little surprised by the term Bede gave, but he quickly relieved. After all, Spider-Man itself is a very magical superhero. In this case, why not call you St. Mr. Spider? How is it? Mr. St. Spider? It sounds like Mr. Special Handling. Bede knew that this was the abbreviation of space-time. He was a little speechless, but it didn't matter. Well, I am indeed here to deal with special events. ST is just ST. So, Orlando officer, can you tell Mr. St. Spider what is going on inside now? It seems the atmosphere is a bit strange. From superficial observation, there was a shootout and someone was injured, so it should be quite tense. But judging from the fact that Officer Orlando could still talk to him so much, it seemed that he was not as nervous as expected, which made Bede a little confused and increasingly confused about the situation. Or are these people so nervous because they are used to it? When it comes to business, Orlando police officer has no intention of continuing to chat with B. He looked serious, and said, the situation inside is indeed a bit complicated. Yet, Pedro responded seriously, but he didn't think it was too much trouble. He had already prepared himself mentally. Anyway, he just had to find a way to solve the problem. The Orlando police officer said, there were 3 robbers inside, each with a pistol. They took a hostage, Ms. Kerr-Creevy, the owner of this gold shop. Bede looked around and asked puzzledly, I think it seems that a gun battle broke out here just now? It seems that there are still casualties. The Orlando police officer's face was a bit embarrassed, and he seemed a little embarrassed to say, it wasn't actually a gun battle. When we tried to storm in, the bullets fired hit the bulletproof glass, and the stray bullets bounced back. One police officer was accidentally injured. Bede, Subway elderly mobile phone? End of this chapter. Like, and subscribe.